deconstruction, getting your life back.
Thank you.
Okay. Welcome, everyone, to Ladder Daily Digest. We honor creators on Tuesdays evenings. We have Tuesdays with Tim. We try to do our best with a live show with, just talking about a subject. Today, from saints to sinners. We used to be perfect. Every single one of us never did one thing wrong. And then we decided to leave perfection and go on our own. And now we sin even less, really.
Speak for yourself, Gene.
What is sin anyway, Gene?
I've got to tell you, Gene, when I was on my mission, my companion and I were walking down the street, and I was so righteous, it's unbelievable. But we were walking down the street, and all of a sudden, I didn't feel any weight on my feet. And I realized I was being lifted up into the air. And it dawned on me that I was actually being translated. And I screamed, "No, God, no, I'm not ready yet." And he dropped me for lying. So
You and Lori Vallow, you guys have nothing on each other.
I know, right? We're both translated.
Randy, I bet your companion tells a much different story.
I'll bet he does. Okay.
Oh, I mean, you're on mute.
He probably said you felt no weight because it was the bull run and you got horns in the pants.
Right?
You were lifted up.
He must have been wearing his rose-colored glasses.
So I'll start out a little bit by saying when I was in the church, there were so many things I learned about what a sin was. It was actually somebody I think wrote down like 200. There are 243 things that you can do wrong in the Mormon church that are a sin.
Is that all?
Yeah, I know. There must be more. They probably must have categorized some things together.
They definitely left some stuff out.
One thing that somebody said was like, if accidentally you took a pencil home from work, right, because you put it in your pocket or something and then you came home, and if you didn't bring it back to work, you stole that pencil.
Yeah.
So,
It's a serious crime. Millions of companies suffer.
Right?
Well, yeah,
Pencil envy.
those paper clips add up.
but they don't talk about the extra blessings you get when you actually bring stuff into work that either you share with your fellow workmates or something. And like teachers, right? Megan was a teacher. You probably
I brought my own office supplies all the time.
Yes.
Yeah. And
and walking around the classroom, I was always sticking markers, crayons, bits of Lego, button, anything in my pockets. And then I would get home and I'd have a marker and I'd have a crayon and the stuff would build up in my bathroom drawer because that's basically where I was. And then I just brought it all back. But the thing is, it's like Megan said, I paid for it. The stuff I bought.
You're going to pay for it all right, Kim.
I bought the Legos. I bought the markers. I bought the crayons.
Someone's going to hell.
University school for a year, my very first year in the classroom. And I didn't get to teach my subject material very much. We had life skills lessons, and then occasionally we got to do the subject matter. But I was astonished at how many kids didn't even have just basic things. And so I spent a lot of time and money providing those kids with pencils and lunches. And we actually had a fairly decent program in my school where they gave the kids breakfast in the morning, but then we as teachers were not allowed to teach until after the first 10 minutes. So the bell would ring, and for the first 10 minutes we weren't allowed to teach. They were only allowed to eat their breakfast during that time. It's a bit of a tangent, but
God, controlling much.
Yeah.
Right?
Felt kind of like the church.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Sounds like the church.
Yeah.
And we should bring this back. So Tim is home.
Yay, Tim.
We're not at the hospital anymore. I wasn't even there long enough to get hospital food.
I starved. They starved me and give me anything to eat.
That's a cure for heart attack, is to not give you any food at the hospital. And it worked, huh?
God.
Did you get a
Must have.
priest's blessing though, Tim?
Hang on. I got a call. Hang on.
Okay, so you take the call and do that. So yeah, Tim was, what do you call it when you leave the hospital?
Discharged,
Discharged at
just like
1:30
the
a.m.
Army.
Ooh.
1:30 a.m. Like, well, we gave you like 15 tests and it doesn't look like there's very much wrong with you. So it's after midnight. You're on your own.
Sounds like every hospital visit I've ever done.
Yeah.
I think they should come up with a different word because discharge is disgusting to me. It's like,
Great.
we had an instructor one time and I was taking a kinesiology class and he would always refer to it as vaginal discharge.
There you go. That's a great way to start.
Why
the show.
was your kinesiology professor talking about vaginal discharge in the first place?
Well, we just love to hear about vaginal discharge.
It makes me
I don't
think
know,
of
they
that
should
hear it
movie.
in that term.
They shouldn't call
that
it
movie
discharge.
Bandit.
They should say you're cured. And it's like, well, I was cured at 1:30 a.m. and left the hospital. That's the way it should be.
After you filled out the paperwork and did all the insurance and got your payments taken care of, then you were cured.
It takes like an hour to treat whatever's ailing you and like 4.5 hours to be discharged.
Yes.
Well, you have to get the doctor's approval and the, supervising physician's approval and the hospital administrator's approval. They have to cover their butts sufficiently so that you don't sue them when you go home.
That's right. All the paperwork you do on your way out isn't to help you any. It's to cover their behinds, right?
Right. But it reminds me, just to go down another tangent, of that movie, I think it was Bandits with Bruce Willis and Billy Bob Thornton, where he plays a hypochondriac and they're robbing a bank and he pretends to be a teller. And the first customer pulls up to the teller window while they're robbing the bank and he pretends to be the teller so they don't get caught. And the guy says, "Where's Linda? She's always here on Monday mornings." And he goes, "She has vaginitis."
Boo.
Was she wearing garments?
Probably not.
That might have been the
That's
cause.
why she had the vaginitis,
Right. Right.
because you're protected from that if you wear them.
Unless they
I don't
aren't
know.
the
I feel like
cotton ones.
all
I
of
used
them
to-
caused it.
I agree
used
with you. Sorry, I was being sarcastic.
And so if anybody's watching and wants to come in and pitch in some ideas, like it's kind of like what you do now that you're a sinner. This group right here.
Well, wait. But
There's
first,
not
we haven't defined what a sin is.
Well, I mean, I'm just making the call.
Does anybody know where the word came from?
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Dictionary. Tell us what sin where it comes from.
Originally, it was
There's nothing more
spelled.
Mormon than starting a talk with the definition.
Originally, it was spelled SYN. Okay, and it was an archery term, and it meant that you missed the bullseye, so you missed the mark.
Mm.
So sinning means to miss the mark, like it talks about in the Book of Mormon. Joseph Smith had to have some know something about archery to know that sin means to miss the mark.
And nipping the bullseye was always a sin when I was a kid. I'm just saying.
And
Well, I
so,
know in
Okay.
Spanish it means
so another
no.
thing I found out is that the word perfect in the 1500s when they were compiling the Bible actually just meant complete. And so to be perfect in biblical terms, because they were translating it for their period, just meant it worked, right? Like if you had a rusty old bicycle, but you could still go to the store with it, it was perfect. It had wheels, it had a pedal, it had the chain. didn't matter that it was rusty or the paint was peeling or something like that. But we get taught that perfection means without flaw, and that's flawed, I will say. And then Rob wants to say something. Missing the mark is not the same as evil as well.
But I think it's good to like highlight that like the word sin has a definition, right? Perfection has a definition. And who owns that definition, right? Who gets to define what sin is and who gets to define what perfection is? I mean, I think in the terms of like just strictly just like the Bible, right? Old Testament was super specific with this is a sin, this is not a sin. Walking this many steps is a sin. Having slaves, that's cool, right? But like
almost all the sins end up with a woman being stoned. That's all I remember.
exactly, right? But
But
it
not
comes
in a good way.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about that later.
not a good.
Right.
Being
After
stoned.
show.
But like even as it like evolves, right? You take like what the Old Testament has, and it was very specific, and then you enter the neo-Christianity phase with Jesus, and boy, sin is just not clear at all in the New Testament. And there are some passages that definitely like it in the letters and things like that talk about sin. But I think they're a little like it's so much more vague in the New Testament as to what sin is. And so like in Mormonism, we definitely lean on leadership to define what sin is, and that sin needs to come from that sin definition comes from a series of I don't want you shouldn't do this. And sometimes there's reasons and sometimes there's not good reasons. Like I would say, I don't know what the reason is for not drinking green tea. It's incredibly healthy. It is super good for you. But serving a mission in Japan, telling the Japanese people they can no longer drink green tea because it's a sin, and they're being like, well, why? And I'm like, because it is. I don't know. Like, and so, like, I think, like, it's not just the definition of sin, but, like, who defines what is a sin versus what's not a sin? And I think that's really tough for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's right. And like Dan, the man, McClellan says that all scriptures are negotiated by people. Everybody at every point in history has said, here's some words. Somebody, my grandpa said they come from God, and he said it means this, but let's change the meaning and let's do it another way. And then other people start writing like Tertio, Deuteronomy, Tritio, whatever it's called, and the other, what's it called when you write a scripture and pretend that some other prophet wrote it?
Plagiarism.
Forgery?
The Book of Mormon?
So the whole Book of Mormon is Joseph Smith uttering prophetic things from some other people, but it all came from him, right? There's another word for it.
Fanfic.
Plagiarizing.
No, it's there's another word. Somebody.
Play acting.
Stealing.
LARPing for the Lord.
Oh, I like LARPing. I'll go with LARPing. I like that.
I don't care what LARPing means. It's a good word.
Channeling. He was channeling. He was channeling.
Pseudepigrapha, apocrypha, and pseudepigrapha.
So a lot of Bible scholars that are Christian talk about pseudepigrapha as if that's an okay thing because apparently God allows it or whatever. But I think I heard from Bart Ehrman that pseudepigrapha was like almost a crime even in the Greek times in the 1st and 2nd century. But it's allowed by the 1500s to be in the Bible because some of the things, Katie Ash had the answer. And so anyhow, we negotiate what those things are. Like Nick was saying, what does it mean? Who says what it is? And I asked my box in the corner that some people call Echo, how many Christian denominations there were. Anybody want to guess?
50,000.
45,000 was the apparently conservative
It's close.
Yes.
50,000, 45 to
That's
50,000.
how many times leaders of churches are negotiating the scriptures, because otherwise there would be one church or two maybe or something like that, right?
But
We'd have
Gene,
good
they all
time.
agree because they all believe in Jesus. Don't you know that? They're all Christians. They all
My
believe in
Jesus is
Jesus.
better than your Jesus.
Exactly.
Everybody else says. And everything every human believes is exactly right, or else they wouldn't believe it. Nobody says, well, I believe that the rain falls upwards, but I haven't looked. We believe what we believe because we think it's right, and we don't change our beliefs until somehow we either think that we should change or something happens to shock our world. For some people, it's realizing that your abuse has lasted long enough, and the system is not helping you, and you start to think for yourself. Sometimes you are poor and tithing just is not working. Sometimes, like my son was bored at church, and so he decided that he would stop going. And so, yeah, sins are different things. But what we were going to say also tonight is like my experience with sin was I never knew that I would ever be able to repent from all the sins I was doing, and I was just going to have to settle for a lower level in heaven, right? I was never going to be celestial material. It was just the way I was. My dad was sort of like that, but he was a Jack Mormon. He was like, I'm going to sin even though I think the church is true, because I just can't. I like smoking. I like drinking. And but you kids, you go to church because it's good for you, right? That was my dad growing up. But so because he was a sinner, I had to look to church leaders as my sort of real father figures, right?
Yes.
Couldn't say he was worthy on his own. He was a very honest man. He was a very good man. He was nice. He was kind to lots of people. And he had a time where he stopped drinking for a little while. They called him to be the Cub Scout master. He did a great job. And then he started drinking, and the awards nights were more fun than ever.
Not drink if you're a Cub Scout master. There's just no way to get through that calling without alcohol.
Yeah.
I was a Cub Scout master. Right? That was my last calling.
That was my first calling in my adult married family ward, was Cub Master. I had 11 boys.
They took me from elders quorum president to when they divided the ward or combined two wards, and they made me Cub Scout master. I couldn't believe it.
So interestingly, as I was deconstructing in 2015, I actually got permission from my doctor to drink coffee. Because I was back, and it was taking me to like noon to start my day. The doctor said, well, what if you drank coffee in the morning? That would help you wake up. It would help you recover from your sleep. And so I waved that piece of paper in front of my wife. Guess what, honey? I have doctor's orders to drink caffeine. And
So
she
you
said,
had
well, you could take no dose.
So Gene, did you start drinking coffee with the doctor's orders?
So I did. I started drinking coffee, and I could start my day at 9 or 10 instead of like noon, because it actually worked. It was really good. And then I didn't want to go to church anymore, and I got a job, but I was passive aggressive, so I found a job where I could work on Sundays. And so I made sure that I would have shifts on Sundays to do, so that I could say, oh, I have to work. I can't go to church. And so I had to do those things in order to make my sins that were good for me in a way, or good for paying for the bills, acceptable, right? And so that was from my guilt. In fact, I emailed John DeLynn in 2013 and asked him to help me someday with my Mormon guilt. And he said, I'm almost graduated. But so anyhow.
I'm curious, Gene, like what was your doctor ordered coffee of choice? Like, did you just go straight up black coffee? Did you get some cappuccino? What was your go-to?
There is no way. My son-in-law, he started drinking coffee before I did, and he said he loved black coffee, and I just couldn't do it. I needed a triple cappuccino. I needed whatever coffee mate flavor was on sale. I needed, either honey and milk or honey and half works really good for me.
Yeah.
I've never put
milk.
honey in coffee. That doesn't sound like it's going to mix very good, to be honest. Like I can see myself doing that.
Yeah, it's really good.
That's really interesting. I've never thought about that.
Makes
Honey's for tea.
Honey is
put-
for tea.
Honey is for tea.
Well,
Somebody needs to get that message to Gene, because
I'm not a caffeine prude. I'm somebody that's flexible and open. So yes, once I found out more about the church and determined that it was basically, to me, since they were lying, it couldn't be something that God would want. And so I deconstructed. And then when I drank coffee, I didn't even think about it. In fact, when I was drinking coffee, the first time I started to drink coffee or other things, I took a no-dose or something like that just before going to a temple session. And prior to that, I thought no-dose was sinning. But it was great.
No-dose is the
Wait.
temple session.
I stayed awake.
No, that's just doze.
Yeah, that's dose plus.
That's
And
right.
I swear, I might have seen angels. Oh no, that was the time I drank before I went. No, I didn't go. I didn't drink. So anyhow, so those are some things that were going on my mind. And now when I do things, I don't do things whether God wants me to or not. I do things whether it will be acceptable to my body or something I want to do. And so does anybody have any experience with those things?
What things?
Sinning, what used to be a sin, but now you don't care.
I don't.
You just do it because you want to.
Well, that's the topic of the show, right, Gene? What are the things that we've started doing now that we're no longer members of the church?
Well,
that's right.
Without guilt.
I saw R-rated movies when I was a member of the church without guilt. I didn't care. For a while I did, but later on I just said, screw it. It's a good movie. I'm going to see
always viewed sinning or sins as going against the 10 Commandments.
Yes.
Those were the universally accepted principles or admonitions that one had to follow. And then as far as not wearing the garments or missing church on Sunday, to me it was just not following church teachings, being disobedient. I didn't perceive it as a sin.
So instructions
my
versus
experience.
like actual sin. Instructions versus like actual sin then.
Right. Because to me, sin should be, it's very heavy. It's like the 10 Commandments stuff. It's very, very heavy. And it should be a universally accepted principle, whether you believe it or not. And you were talking about rain falling upwards. Or look at the example of humans need nutrition. Whether you believe it or not, humans need nutrition. Okay, it's not a subjective thing. So to me, the sin is something that people universally across the board, in, let's say, most of your religious constructs would agree, killing somebody is a sin. Committing adultery after taking, vows is a sin.
But what about during war?
Well, then you have your conscientious objectors who internalize that admonition very, very seriously, obviously to their detriment. So then let's go back.
The only time you're allowed to sin is if the ox was in the mire, in a way.
Well, it's like the time I was going to church, and these girls, I knew their car broke down on the side of the road, and I stopped to help them. And somebody else, this other guy, stopped, who was on his way to church, and worried more about getting to church on time than helping these girls get their car running. And I said, which is more important? I said, church isn't going to go anywhere.
Right.
It's going to be They need our help right now. He took off, and I said, screw him. I fixed
Okay,
the
this
car
better
for
get a little juicier because right now y'all are the most boring sinners I've ever heard. So
Yeah.
if you don't mind, I will kick off
Well,
what
what
I
kind
do
of
now.
sin?
Thank you, Randy. Thank you for saving us.
I found how enjoyable it was to smoke weed. I loved to smoke weed. I was a real pothead up until 7 months ago. I was every night, but then I started forgetting shit, and I couldn't remember anything I was saying. So I decided to take a break for 2 weeks, and it's been 7 months. I felt so good not smoking it, but it's not because I feel guilty in any way. I just like to remember how to write my name. Um, uh, and let's move to adultery, or let's say sex out of wedlock. Uh, hey, Katie barred the doors when I was done with the church and I lost my wife. It was like women were just kind of coming out of the woodwork, and I just decided, I was going to indulge in whatever came down the path, if you know what I'm saying.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
And heck yeah, and I don't regret one. Okay, this is kind of a confession for y'all. While I was a very TBM, true believing Mormon, I was a massage therapist, by the way. I went through massage school because I was trying to get rid of my wife's headaches that were so bad. And I started to learn that I could do some bartering, massage for other services. I mean, legitimate services. And when I was getting divorced from my wife, I um, I was able to make a deal with the attorney who was the hottest attorney. She was even in the like hot attorney calendar, wherever that came from, but she was in like the top 10 most attractive attorneys. And I made a deal with her, massages, if she'd do my divorce for me. And the lady who did my publicity with the business I had at the time, she was also really incredible. And they approached me on my birthday and asked if I would come to her apartment and they would both work me over, both at the same time.
Randy,
Well, no, I'm just saying that
I
was the
know.
offer, but oh no, I was Mr. Righteous and I did not accept. I turned them down in the name of faithfulness, even though because my divorce wasn't final yet. So I turned them down. But I kind of got to be honest that thinking about it now, it's like, you idiot. That would have made for some really good memories. But
And
no,
good shows.
I did refrain. And yeah, I thought about that a time or two. But another thing for me is I started drinking coffee. And now, you know what? I don't want to get my day going without my amazing, as I've told many of you, my amazing peanut butter infused coffee. It just will make you want to push little puppies in the water. It's so good. So, yeah, I drink that every morning.
Randy, I think that's a sin right there. Pushing
I'm
puppies in the
going to say
water.
that.
We're gonna call the line here. This is the 11th commandment. We're not gonna push puppies in the water.
Oh, and then, yes, no, I would never do that, but I did take up cigars, and I'm a cigar aficionado right now.
I'll
Mm.
drink to
So,
that there, Randy.
yeah, buddy, my coffee, my cigars, my free sex. No, just kidding. I'm very loyal and faithful to, now that I'm in love and have a fiance who I completely love, I would not ever, but not because it's a sin. I would just never betray her because I love her and I would never want to break her heart. Plus, I'm 65 freaking years old and no one's going to want to have sex with me anyway. So there's
Randy,
that.
you'd be surprised.
Don't sell yourself short, Randy.
I have
I'm
met
just,
women who only want one thing for a date: a a few times.
I've heard about
Well,
those.
listen.
Do tell.
stories.
Please go on.
where-
I
Well-
feel like there's more to that story, Tim.
Right?
You can't lead off the hitter and then bunt. You gotta
Well-
swing.
Okay, I didn't know it was going to happen. Okay, I meet a woman for a date, and they ask me what they want to do, and they tell me. I said, "All right, let's do it." And sometimes it's a one-off thing, sometimes it's 2 or 3. You know,
Scared of you, Tim.
no, it's mutual. It's like, how many times do you want to meet?
Well,
Wow.
that's good that it's mutual,
Yeah,
Yeah.
Be kind of awkward if it wasn't.
right?
yeah. I mean,
It's like she didn't
sometimes-
want to have sex, but I went ahead and did it anyway.
But it's interesting
called a different word.
because where I live is extremely conservative, and it's really interesting that it happens. I'm just surprised sometimes.
Well,
The
and you
people
know, I want to also say, just to end off my part, Amanda reminded me of this, that, you know, being out of the church, we tend to accept things or find an interest in things that I maybe as an active member never would have. Like, we love sound baths and the kind of the woo-woo stuff that deals with other forms of relaxation and enjoyment and finding ourselves. And I can't see me as a member ever doing that stuff because, you know, everyone would look at it as something other than sitting in sacrament meeting, you know. But I would much rather go to a good sound bath on Sunday than even think about going to a church, because the spirituality there is so much stronger than I ever felt in a church meeting. So yeah, there's great things that we can find as inactive or non-members of the church now that we tend to accept a lot more willingly than we would if we were still in the church. And yeah, and I say these things humbly in Tim's name. Amen.
I
Well,
was
to
so
kind of
ready
play
for
off
you
of
to
you,
keep going.
Randy, you know, when I got divorced, I was a faithful member, you know, card carrying, temple recommend holding member, gospel doctrine teacher, all of those things. Very, very faithful. I think the first thing that really exploded my shelf that I couldn't even put on the shelf was the 2015 LGBTQ policy. And I think things kind of just went south after there. But, you know, 2016, I started my 3rd round of marriage counseling with my former spouse, and it was not going well. And so in 2017, we decided to end our marriage. And I had gotten my temple recommend renewed in October of 2016. And they were good for 2 years at that point. And so when I split up from my husband, I finally started digging into some therapeutic issues that I was kind of afraid to address when I was married. And one of those is that I'm bisexual. It was something that I never felt safe telling my former spouse because I knew he was going to have this typical misogynistic response and expect certain things of me that I did not want to tell him because I knew he wasn't going to honor that part of me. It was going to become like a joke. And so when I started dating people, I earnestly really tried hard when I first got divorced to date only members because I thought, this is my chance to finally find an eternal companion and go to the temple and get married and get sealed to my children. And I maybe dated 3 or 4 different people, one of which was the worst date I've ever been on, which I think I've told that story on Tuesdays with Tim, probably in the after show though. But yeah, I just had a really hard time finding men that appreciated who I was as a divorced female and somebody that I even felt safe enough being myself around. And so I just kind of came to the conclusion that I was never, ever going to fit into the Mormon box. And I spent about 6 years just thinking, well, celestial kingdom for me, cool. I'm fine with that. I was never meant for the celestial kingdom. It even says in the scriptures, like, you're not going to be comfortable there if you're not, this particular type of person, white, hetero, cisgendered person. So I just sort of, gave up on ever being in the celestial kingdom. And I also came to the conclusion, when I started these dating relationships, I was like, you know what? I'm a grown-ass woman, and I totally appreciate the rules of morality and the law of chastity for young people, for teaching young people that they should be in a committed relationship before they have sex. I think that's really awesome. What I hate is that the church never teaches anything about consent. They never teach anything about protection. In fact, when I ended up pregnant at 19, my dad said to me, well, if I knew you were going to have sex, I would have told you to use a condom. And I was like, well, first of all, it was the first time I'd ever heard my dad use the word sex. Before this, it was always the sacred powers of procreation. And I was like, you're assuming, Dad, that I don't know what a condom is or how to use one. But it just dawned on me as a divorced 45-year-old woman. I was like, it is none of my bishop's business what I do in the bedroom.
That's
Because
right.
I'm not out here to be
Amen.
promiscuous. I still believe in the value of being in a committed relationship before you're sexual with someone. But also, I had experienced so much bishop roulette at this point that I full on knew that if I went to my bishop and confessed having sex with a new partner, that it was up in the air as to whether I got excommunicated or whether I just got a new calling. So I just really felt like it was none of my bishop's business. And I really believed in the spirit of the law that, I have a value that I want to be in a committed relationship with someone before I'm sexual with them. And if I make the decision to do that, it doesn't damage my spirituality in any way. God knows who I am. God knows my heart. He knows that I'm a good person. He knows that I'm not going to be out here having babies with people without being in committed relationship. And as long as it's a consensual thing, I felt like that was really my purview to do that. And I really did not want to be in a situation where I was in a disciplinary council as a 45-year-old woman, talking about my sex life with 15 men who are probably going to use it later. But anyway, that's just how I felt as an adult female leaving the church. I was like, this is childish and stupid that I have my own morality and I have my own values that align with church teachings. All the reasons that we teach young people about the law of chastity, in my opinion, have to do with the fact that we don't want babies to be born into a place where they don't have a full support system. And we don't want people just having casual random sex as a pleasure only and with no kind of connection between the parties. Obviously, a lot of my ideas about a lot of things have changed, but I think that was one of the first things that changed for me, is that I made a decision. And actually, I met with my bishop right after I got divorced, and he said, do you know what the number one thing is that we have to discipline adults for after they have been divorced? And I said, well, I'm going to guess that you're going to say fornication. And he was like, that's right. Most of the time it's people out here fornicating, because he's like, they get so used to having a sexual relationship with somebody that then when you date someone, you're kind of addicted to that physical attraction, and you're not going to be able to stop at just holding hands or kissing. And I just thought at that whole conversation, I was like, this is so juvenile. I'm not 14 years old. Why are we even having this conversation? But he was basically cautioning me and saying, like, if you want to keep your temple recommend, you want to keep yourself worthy, you want to get married in the temple someday, you need to be really careful about what you do in your relationships. And I just thought, this is bullshit.
Amen.
And
Yep.
if you were a male, they would have looked the other way.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Right.
exactly my point. I knew so many couples who had gotten divorced or went through disciplinary councils where the man gets a slap on the wrist and the woman
Or a
gets
high five.
or excommunicated. Oh yeah, and secretly they're high-fiving. They're in the temple dressing room being like, "Nice, way to go, way to go. She's going to be your future second, third, fourth wife.
That's right.
There was somebody in my stake. I had a really neat bishop. He died, and his wife was dating this guy, and he was poking this other girl while he was dating her. They were chaste, but he wasn't chaste with this other woman. And then they got married in the temple for time. He stole all her money. He destroyed her life. And she committed suicide by walking out into traffic.
Oh,
Yeah, it's really sad. Really, really sad.
I don't know. I mean, I'm so sorry.
But
Tim.
that guy,
Horrible baby.
they slapped him on the wrist.
Right.
I kind of hope they call me in for a disciplinary council one day for, spewing things that don't go along with the church. Because I'm going to say, if that's what you're excommunicating me for, I'm about to knock your socks off. Just hold on to your seats. Because I'm going to
Okay,
give
tell
you
you
a
what,
ton of
Yes.
reasons that you should have excommunicated me for.
That's right. Megan alluded to the fact that they used her information maybe in the bathroom later
Uh-huh.
that day or in their bedroom while they were by themselves. And you're willing to just give them all the material they can have. So
Yeah, get your pens and pencils out, brothers.
Uh-huh.
So I wanted to bring Nick and Shansa in, talk a little bit about their show. One thing I was thinking, because their show is about exploring different things, expo possibilities, and so maybe you guys, if you can, if you wanted to mention some of the shows that people can see and what the topics were, or if you have something that you wanted to share as far as what it was like when you first started sinning, go ahead.
I'm gonna sip on my bourbon while Shansa talks.
That's right.
So I'm gonna sin while she
Wait. This is
communicates.
very important. What kind of bourbon is it?
This is what kind of bourbon. I think it's Buffalo Trace,
I'm proud of you. Thank you. You can.
which is a beautiful bourbon. And Sam's
That's my
Club
favorite.
had it on a special, so I bought a lot.
Nice.
So I think for us, like when we first started kind of exploring, I felt so much guilt. Like even though we were like, we're done at the church, there was still so much like, or like, okay, I'm drinking and I'm wearing tank tops, and like there was a lot of fear that went along with it still, just from all the conditioning. And I remember when we first moved to Arizona, we were like, we're done with the church. We're like, this is our fresh start. And Nick's brother asked us a week after moving in if he could live with us for 5 weeks. And I remember being like, what? Like, this was our fresh start, and we can't live like that if he's living with us. Because he's one of those guys that he goes to church on Sundays, he comes back, and he reads the scriptures all day. That's like all he'll allow himself to do. He doesn't watch TV. There's no Xbox. There's no football games, anything that way. And so we had a really hard time with that. And I remember he would like leave the house, and I'd be like, okay, I can put my tank top on and pull out my White Claw, and he all of a sudden would show back up at the house, and I'd be like, "Duh!" and I'd run back upstairs and go throw something on real quick. And I just remember feeling so much shame and guilt and just so much frustration. And so after he left, we finally actually started like deep diving into like the history and being like, okay, was it ever true? Was it ever a reason to feel the way that we feel? And realizing that it wasn't, opened those doors. All of a sudden, like everything was, I mean, obviously I think that something I want to point out is like for us, we talk about possibilities, but there's still things I would never do. Like I'm not going to go try cocaine. I'm not going to open up my marriage, but I have a lot of friends who have done those things. And I think something that I've had to wrap my mind around is that just because I don't agree with something doesn't mean that it's wrong or sinful. It just means that it's something that for myself, I don't want for me and my family. Would you add to that?
I mean, you're not going to try cocaine, but
So I think that like our channel is really going to be based off of like, like where to start with wine, where to start with cigars, where to start with different like hemp drinks or gummies and things like that. Like I remember leaving and being like, I'll never try THC, and then trying it for the first time and being like, oh, I don't know why I was so against that. And just how much fun it's been to explore those things, and how fun it's been to date each other again in like a new way that's not just dinner and a movie, but is like, let's get fixed up and go to these fancy places and go dance and have a great time, go get drunk and experience those things. And it's been so fun. And I just want to help people explore that and realize that and like, you don't have to do any of those things, right? Like, you don't have to go out and drink. You don't have to get high, but just knowing, I guess, that like there's a soft way to start if you wanted to try. That's kind of what our goals are.
I think for a lot of people, like, there's a lot of people that leave like high demand religion, and like their first thought is like, okay, well, I guess I'm an alcoholic now. And that's definitely not the case. I mean, if your limit is drinking green tea and that's where you're at, that's fine with us. We don't care. The only person you need to reconcile that is between you and whoever is in your circle that is important to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's just so much for us to personally feel comfortable with exploring. And in a couple, like with Shansa and I, like what we like to do and hang out. Like, I remember once while we were married, we took a trip down to
We're still married.
Yeah, well,
Just putting that out there.
I need more. So when we were in the church, married, we went down to Las Vegas for an anniversary. And Shansa really, really, really wanted to go to a club and dance. And I'm like, dude, I'm in my 30s. That's just not happening. It's just not going to happen. And we didn't do it. And since we've left the church, we have gone to speakeasies. We've gone to dance clubs. We've gone to adult proms. We have and I am a horrific dancer. Like, I am like it is unfortunate that they allow me on the dance floor, but it happens, and I'm out there doing my thing, and I'm having fun. And like, it takes a lot to get past that stigma of being like, oh, I don't have to be a stuffy person wearing a tie teaching the elders quorum lesson on Sunday. I can be hanging out with my wife and then come back and cuddle with her in bed and be hungover the next day, and that's okay.
We have a lot of friends too that are like, some of us are in our 30s, some of us are in our 40s, 50s, some of us are even, in the 60s. And it's so fun to see all ages, yes, and higher, right? Like, enjoying their life for the first time and taking those steps. So,
pursuant to what you guys are talking about, I have thought for a really long time about doing like a little mini series on my channel about how to drink responsibly, because we don't get taught that as Mormons. And I think a lot of people go out and they get wasted and then they're miserable. I even had a friend of mine say, okay, I was feeling super rebellious and I was on an airplane and I was like, all right, I'm going to try wine. She was like, I hated it. I'm like, that's because you had wine on an airplane.
Yes.
I would love to, maybe we should collaborate, but because I would love to do a little series on educating people about different types of bourbon and different types of tequila and different types of wine, and what to try, what not to try, what to try if you tried it and you hated it, those kinds of things. And one of the first things that I did, honestly, so my former spouse had a drinking problem, and I never wanted to drink in front of my kids. And so I was literally a closet drinker for a little while. I would put a bottle of wine in my closet and I would enjoy it after my kids went to bed. But one of the first things that I did was I bought a breathalyzer on Amazon, because I wanted to know how much of X alcohol that I'm going to drink is going to affect me, and all of that stuff, while I was safe sitting at home in my own space, and not while I was just, out at some random bar or something. And I think there's so many people that could benefit from things like that.
agreed.
That's a great idea, Megan. The first time I drank, my best friend and I went to Vegas to watch a show, and we decided, as long as we were there, let's pound a few down, And I said to the server, because they just keep bringing you all the alcohol you want. I said, what's something that doesn't taste gross like alcohol, that tastes really good but will still give me a buzz? she said, "Oh, you ought to try some White Russians." And I said, "Okay, bring it on." So she brought me a White Russian. I downed that. I downed 12 more.
Oh,
13
It's
White
dangerous
Russians
when it
later,
tastes that good.
I ended up laying on the bathroom floor of the men's
Uh-huh.
restroom. I'm sure I was laying in piss and vomit and whatever. I didn't care. I was so sick. I could have really used that advice to not start with drinking 13 White Russians on your first go around. I'm
Yeah,
lucky I'm
that would have
still
been,
alive.
yeah.
yeah.
And I actually had a really wonderful bartender at a restaurant that I used to like to go, and I would sit at the bar, and I would go in and I would order my drink, and she would give me a glass of ice water, and I wouldn't really, touch it that much. And she would say, "Are you ready for another round?" And I would go, "Yeah, sure." And she would go, "Okay, drink your water first, and then I'll bring you another round." Because she knew I was a beginner, and she was like, "Megan, listen, if you drink the same amount of water as you're having alcohol, you'll probably be okay in the morning." And I was like, "Oh, okay, that's a good idea." And so I did that when I was there, and then other places I would forget, and I always regretted it. So like little things like that we just don't know. We don't learn those things.
Yeah, I
And
could have
it's
used that. Yeah.
Yeah.
and it's nice because like we've got a teenage boy, some teenagers in the house, and I want to teach them like when it comes time to drink, this is how we're going to do it. I'm going to help show
Yeah.
you guys that you can still drink responsibly and not make huge mistakes and you passed out on the bathroom floor, holding hands with Randy and but like
I-
for me, like I'm a big beer drinker. I love beer. I think it's fantastic. I think that like beer is God's gift to men. Like I think it's fantastic. Like I love beer. I mean, next to my wife. And so I think it's fun to go like to a bar and sample different beers and really enjoy them. But you do need to like kind of be like, okay, this one's 6%. It's going to hit harder than a Michelob Ultra that's beer tasting water. And everyone's slightly different too. Did I eat today? Did I have any hydration today? We played in our neighbor's pool yesterday and had a great time. The sun was out and the beers were out, and boy, they just hit harder when that's happening.
Yeah, and going
And
back to,
also, if you're sorry, go ahead.
I should say, I think going back to like being careful, and being responsible and showing our children how to be responsible. Like, I think it's like we've tried really hard to be like, hey, we're going out drinking tonight. We're taking an Uber. I want you guys to know that we're taking an Uber. Or, hey,
Yeah.
we have a designated driver. Because I always want our kids to know that that is how you drink responsibly and how to be a good adult when that becomes their time, right? And that you don't
Modeling
have
good
to
behavior.
go crazy.
Well, and I think it
That's
goes
smart.
way beyond just drinking. Like it's living responsibility. Who's your wingman to help you out when you are, when you're out, and whether you're inebriated or high or just having a good time. Like you need someone to is there to help you, wingman with you and just help you have fun, but help you be safe.
Right.
And I think that goes really important for women who are going out and they're having fun and they need a friend who's going to be there to say like, hey, you're not going home with this guy.
I always told my girls that if they were in any kind of situation, and this still goes for them now today when they're adults, if you're in any kind of situation where you need an out of some kind, I am your excuse no matter what you want it to be. And all they would have to do was text me an X, and I would call them and I would say, I need you to come home right now, and I'm coming to get you right now. Tell all your friends your mom's a bitch and she's coming to get you. That was our rule, because I was like, I don't care what you're doing or what the situation is. If you're in trouble, I'm coming to get you. And it's kind of like you're saying, it's when things are taboo, when they're totally off limits, you're never allowed to do them. Kids are going to find a way to sneak that. And if you just make it okay, it's just okay. And you just have the conversation with them beforehand, and you make sure that they're safe and that they know that you have their back.
Yeah. And just like, I know we're talking about drinking and like having kids, I'm doing that with swearing with my kids. Like, I'm telling my kids it's okay to swear. Like, say some swear words. I'm going to teach you how to swear and do it elegantly without sounding silly. But like, there's a time to swear and there's a time not to swear. When you're in class, it's probably not a good idea to swear. And
Yeah.
when they learn these things from their parents and from those people around them who are their support network, they're going to feel more confident. They're going to feel more comfortable. They're going to feel more well-rounded in just being able to say, hey, like, swearing isn't taboo. Like, I can swear, and I know when it's okay to swear. I know when it's not okay to swear, because I definitely know people who don't know when it's a good time to swear, and they throw that in there, and it throws off the conversation.
I have a little
That's good.
chalkboard in my house. I put it up, when I was still married, and all 6 of my kids were at home, and I had my daughter do some cute lettering on it. And it said, we lived in a small house, and it said something to the effect of love grows best in tiny homes. Think of all we would miss out on if there was too much space between and walls to separate. Just love grows best in tiny homes. And that was what it was until, I got divorced. And then when I bought my own house by myself, I was like, what am I going to put on here? I don't want to do the whole trite thing that I've seen online so many times. In this house, we do X, Y, and Z and whatever. And so for the first couple of years that I lived in my own home, my chalkboard said, I am Groot 48 times. If you know the character Groot from Marvel, everything he says is I am Groot, and it's just different inflections, but he uses that to express whatever. So I use that as a way to say, like, I don't know exactly what I'm saying, but it's important for us to have a family thing. And then after a few years, when I got more comfortable with who I really am at the core and what really is important to me, do I really care if my kids curse? No, I care that they know how to curse.
Properly.
Exactly. And so now I have, for a little while on my chalkboard, I had just 2 rules on there, and I'll tell you what they are in a second. But now I have a very nicely carved wood sign. I should go get it and show it to you. And it says, it's got a beautiful flower on it, and carved in wood, it says, you did not wake up today to be a weak ass bitch. And my kids see it every day when they come in the kitchen.
So now they walk in and say, hi, I'm fucking Groot.
Yeah.
I think it's just like, it could be as small as swearing. I think like disambiguating the concept of sin between what's actually bad. And like I served my mission in Japan, and the word sin in Japanese means pain. And I like that, because that's what it is. It's causing pain, whether it's to yourself or whether it's to others. And like we said earlier, like many of the 10 commandments are based around harming others. And I think that is a good way to say, like, how can I live in society and view sin as less about
A set of rules.
And something that how should I be a good person in society?
Exactly.
And there's so much more to that, and it allows you to see the word sin much differently. And it's not just a set of instructions; it's a set of like guidelines on how I want to treat my fellow man.
That makes sense. Kinder Kim, are you being so quiet because you have no sin?
She's thinking about all the 10 commandments that she's deciding to break.
I can't cast the first stone. No, I'm just listening to what everybody else is saying.
Yeah, and I'm putting up Exmo Possibilities. This is the link to their channel. Earlier in the show, I put up a link to the interview Randy and I did with them earlier this month. So you can check in Latter Daily Digest's list of shows if you want to see our interview with them to find out more. But yeah, thanks for coming on the show. We're not ending or anything like that, but I thought I'd make sure I said that.
They're
But one
swearing in the chat.
thing about Kinder Kim,
They said fuck.
that's right. One thing about Kinder Kim is that your husband still attends church?
No, he's a Nevermo.
He's a Nevermo. Okay,
No.
he has his own thing, and so you can sin anytime you want, just about then. Ever since
Yeah, I think he likes it when I do.
There you go. Even more
We
attractive.
need to make a T-shirt that says "My husband likes it when I sin."
Yeah.
Kind of hot. Yeah.
Kendall says he's trying to come in.
Oh,
See
good.
if
Kendall's coming? No.
So, Kinder Kim, you don't want to cast the first stone? We've already thrown a bunch of stones.
I want to hear I want to hear where her sins are coming from. Like, I want to hear some sins.
What is it?
What if she doesn't believe in sin? Maybe she doesn't believe in it. I don't believe in it anymore.
Right, because we're only saying sin in quotes. We're living normal lives now, right? And we're just saying, in case TBMs watch the show, then they understand that we know the words.
Well, all of you have alluded to the fact that we're living good lives. We're being good humans. And unfortunately, some of the choices we might make right now would be considered inappropriate by the church.
Who cares what the church calls inappropriate?
Some people might think it's a sin to be in an organization that makes you do things that you wouldn't otherwise do, like wear certain type of underwear.
Or disenfranchise a family member for being gay.
Or that. Or for 150 years, hide behind Brigham Young's prejudice, right? And say that blacks can't receive temple blessings.
Right, because he was the prophet and they're infallible. Yeah.
Yeah, and monkeys might fly out my butt.
Is that going to be another episode?
He did work for Disney, so maybe monkeys will fly out of his butt.
Listen, never say never.
Here's Richard saying, isn't lying a sin? Does anybody know any, let's say, members of the Quorum of the 15 or class leaders that have actually engaged in the sin? That should be an episode, maybe, right?
Yes.
Isn't lying a sin?
Channel on TikTok called Rusty Lied.
There you go.
Yes.
Isn't lying a sin? A new episode where we just talk about all the lies that the church has said over the years. We might even not even have to go back very far, right?
Where do you want to start? We'd start with the beginning, and then we'd move forward.
It's just like when we did a show when we talked about something and we just hung around Nauvoo the whole time instead of like advancing. Can't remember what that was about, but it was a similar type of looking at the heirs of their ways, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Isn't it a sin to diddle 14-year-old girls?
Oh,
one would think.
Wait, let me think.
Asking
not if you're married to them.
What about girls who are nearing their 15-year-old mark?
There you go.
A few months shy.
Just a few months shy of 15.
Right.
And the happiness letter that was all based on is like total coercion, right?
Like somebody was shy of their 14th year.
Right.
14th year.
Right, and they worry about coffee.
I heard a comedian one time say that you've got to. It's all about how you say things. He says you can say, "I love kids," and people will think that's great. But if you get too specific and say, "I love 12-year-olds," that's when it becomes an issue.
That's a problem.
So it's all about the way you say it.
Right.
That's right. Some of the old songs from the 50s, right? Like Sweet 16.
Oh, yeah. Sweet little 16, yeah.
She was just 17. You know what I mean.
Puppy love.
She was only 16.
Ripe and ready.
My one of my mentor professors in the education department at my university he in class going around asking people, what is your intent? Why do you want to be a teacher? And inevitably you would have somebody say, oh, I just love children. And he would deadpan back, so do pedophiles. Yeah, and
Right?
everyone would be very nonplussed, like, okay, you need to be
More
you're not,
specific.
yeah. I think
Was
I
it
know.
like find another reason or?
Well,
I love
yes,
consenting children.
definitely you want to say I have caring, concern,
Yeah.
compassion, and love for children, but that can't be my only reason to to want to be a teacher.
Should
I
be,
just
it
really
should
love
be,
being around children.
You could
it
say, I
should be
worry for
the,
the future of America. I want kids
yeah,
to be smart.
exactly. I'm here to educate the future generations in America.
This job
Katie
will
Ash
give
is
me
just
money.
breaking us up in the chat here.
Right. Punctuation
Take the
counts.
show on the
Okay,
road.
Katie. I like to eat kids. Okay, this is how you should look at the best way to look at life is what's working for you in your life and what's not working for you in your life. Okay, that's how I look at life. What's working for me and what's not working for me. I'll get rid of it if it's not working for me.
Mm-hmm.
If it's working for me, you know. If other people want to consider that a sin, that's their problem, not mine.
That's right. If anybody has a barking dog in the background, you can mute your mic for a little while.
Oh, that's me. I'm sorry.
Not mine.
That
Mine are asleep.
They're
Oh,
outside.
that's me.
On my legs, so my body temperature is like heating up.
Megan, my Chihuahua was barking at your dog barking.
Oh, jeez.
That happens to me all the time. Sorry.
So hey, we're not ending the show for quite a little while, we'll say, but Randy and I did sort of a show to tease today's show, and we were just going to have Renee Steelman come on and do like a 5-minute blurb. It turned into a whole episode. We released it yesterday. If you want to go back and see that, you can. But I clipped some highlights from the interview that we did with her. And so we can all go get a couple of drinks while I'm playing this. I'm going to
Play it.
and I'm going to do it full screen so we can leave. And it's like 17 minutes long, but I'm going to play the first 7 minutes and then I'm going to come back. And then if you want to, you can hear Renee's TikTok where she kind of lambasts the secret lives of Mormon wives. And so I'm going to start the interview and then I'm going to go full screen when I come back.
And here's the other thing. The church is so good at gaslighting. They could easily change BYU and just give it a Provo University or University of Provo or some
Everybody
other
mute your
whatever.
mics. Well, every year they do gaslighting the world.
Yeah, exactly. But then what would people do? All their T-shirts, all their hats, all their Cougar license plates. Look at how much. Well, they could make money off that too. They could sell that at Deseret Book and make more money off that. But I agree. But one of the things that I didn't do as a mother, one thing I will pat myself on the back for, is I did not make my girls wear garment-friendly clothing when they were 3 years old. And when we went to
them be
Hawaii,
girls.
and when we went to Hawaii, I was like, that bikini looks fabulous on you. And when it's time to buy a prom dress, I was like, that strapless gown is perfect for your body type. That's what you're wearing. And so I didn't do any of that stuff because I did not believe in the, you must put on clothing that makes it look like you have garments if you don't have garments. It's like, no, that is not an age ritual that we need to follow.
You were body positive.
I was. But you know what? That brings us to the topic after 3 or 4 hours of the idea of what is a sin, right? I mean,
That's right.
I remember before I even left the church, honestly, 2018, we moved to Arizona. We bought Harleys, and there's something magical. I'm sure it's the deceiver when you walk into the the showroom of a Harley dealership. Satan takes over, overcomes your life. But
Plus, isn't it the biggest vibrator you can buy?
what's that? Harley?
Harley.
Depends on which model, you know.
Yeah.
If you get a Sportster like I did, probably yes. And I got the other thing was I got my first tattoo. And I don't, and it hadn't, and it didn't even occur to me to think, well, I better go ask the bishop if it's okay if I get a tattoo, or I didn't even think I should ask my husband if it was. And I am a big Halloween lover. It's like the best holiday in the world. And so I got my first tattoo, and it's I don't know if you can see it. It's a witch's hat, a broom, and
Let
a
me
pumpkin.
bring you up closer.
Oh,
Okay, hold it up there. The witch's hat and broom.
Yeah. So witch's hat, a pumpkin, and the broom. That's my first
very
tattoo.
cool.
And so it was like, and then I remember going to Sunday school, and I wore lots of bracelets to hide it. And, you know, and I even did that around my grandchildren because I didn't want grandma to be a bad influence on them, you know. But I remember sitting in Sunday school and they were talking about the sin of tattoos. And I was like, I don't really think it's a sin. I mean, I don't remember. And I did that. I mean, I sat in the congregation when Gordon B. Hinckley at the women's conference. I sat there when he was giving his talk. And I remember, and I think I've said this to you before, Jean, I remember going, he says, you know, and men should be, short hair and no beards, and women, jewelry. I'm like, don't say it. Don't say it. He's going to say it. One pair of earrings. I'm like, he said it. Dang it. And I took out my second piercing. I did, I'm like, oh, I love Gordon Hinckley. I did it because if the prophet says to do it, then I'll do it. And if it's giving a bad impression, fine, whatever, I don't care. But here's what I learned, guys. Once you take out your earring, the hole doesn't go away. So you still have two piercings, and it's very visible. It's very obvious. And you go to Europe. We're in France, sitting on the beach, and the women are topless, and people couldn't care less. It's such a cultural thing that the Victorian, Methodist, Mormon, Joseph Smith culture ranked as sin. And that brings us back to the topic, Jean, of the secret wives of Mormon lives. Because these women are in Provo and they're in this bubble, they think that they think they're the new 21st century suffragettes. They're going to free women, and they're going to show women what true empowerment looks like. And how are they doing that? A crop top and a mini skirt and cowboy boots. And I'm like, I don't want to tell you this, but if you go to a Taylor Swift concert, they all have on cowboy boots and crop tops. They don't think that they're making a feminist statement. It's more a fashion statement. Yeah, but these girls think this is empowerment because the church has told them that's a sin. And so, and they're like, I'm a good Mormon. I don't drink. But what are you talking about? You can, but I have but no, I mean, this is my power. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's your fashion choice. That's all you're making is a fashion choice. And besides that, now they've come out with sleeveless garments. So you can put on a nude tank top and wear see-through clothes and you're good.
That's right. We'll start a new saying here. Prude is just one letter added on to rude.
Try it. I'm just going to try it, So I tried a White Claw. And if you guys ever tried a White Claw, just drink some baking soda and water and you're good. I don't know. It's horrible. It's horrible. And I'm like, okay, I like kombucha. And I used to drink kombucha all the time too. And people would say to me, but kombucha has alcohol in it. I'm like, whatever. Give me a break, and I would rather have a kombucha than a White Claw. I thought it was stupid. It tasted horrible. So then I tried a little bit of wine, and it was like, I don't drink my fingernail polish remover, and I'm not drinking wine. I mean, it's like, this is like drinking vinegar. What is up with you people? So then I'm like, now I'm on a quest, right? So I'm like, all right, I'm going to find. So then I'm like, okay, let's try something that has a sweet. And I tried a sweet wine. I was like, well, that's better. But in reality, it also is like drinking a glass of sugar and water. and it's got a lot of calories in it, and I'm not going to drink my calories. I'd rather eat it. So I'm like, that's not good. So then I tried a drink that had like the cream or the Kahlua, and I'm like, okay, I do like this. I must say, I do like the cream and Kahlua type drinks. But again, I'm like, but I don't feel anything after I drink it except for a little dizzy. So I'm like, why would I put my liver through this just so that I can go, yeah, cream and Kahlua is good. I'm like, and cream and coffee is good too. So I've tried it. I don't get it. I don't get happy when I drink it. I don't want to dance on a table when I drink it. I really just want to go home and go to bed. Yeah.
Have
So,
you experimented with cannabis at all?
no,
Well,
no. And I follow Dr. Amen. He's really big on the brain. I don't want to, I'm a little bit of a control freak. I think that's my problem. I don't want to be out of control because I've seen people. I mean, we've had parties that I've had open bar. I just really feel like a good workout does the same thing. Maybe I'm wrong. But anyway, so that's really that. I really haven't branched out. I'm not going to cheat on my husband. We're not having an open marriage. I haven't brought in the pool boy.
Yeah. So let's get to your. So anyhow, that's Renee. She has a great channel, and we all can watch her channel. Randy, do you remember the name of her channel? I can't remember. Somebody can type it in. I'm just having a brain freeze right now.
Oh, Randy's still eating. And he's on mute.
She became visible.
She became visible. That's
Crap.
right.
She became visible.
That's right. I made her invisible just now, but it's to emphasize the point that she became visible. And so we did a show. You can go check our shows, and in the links to the show in the description, we have her channel. Just like for this show, I put in the description of this show the link as well to Nick and Shance's show. Some of the people that are came late didn't get to hear, I guess, who Nick and Shansa was, but they do have a podcast called Exmo Possibilities, and it's in the description, like I say. And so if there's anybody that wants to come on, and there's the link I put in the chat, you can copy and paste. And if you have to have Chrome, that's the way to do it. And so Renee went on, we showed her TikTok, and has anybody seen her TikTok? Did anybody see the show? And so we can show that in a little while. I have it queued up; it's available, but we'll see if people that want to see it, you can see it, or you can go to yesterday's show, and the link to the TikTok is in the description. So if there's an outpouring of support for watching the TikTok, we'll show that in about 20 minutes or so. But anyhow,
Nick, you said that Randy's still eating. This has to be a sin. It tastes so good.
What do you
I
got
made
there?
homemade spinach dip. Spinach.
Ooh.
I love spinach dip. And
And
I
yet
would
you
buy
still
these
won't
little
come down and visit
containers.
us.
I will bring some. I would buy these little containers, and it was like $5 or $6 a piece, and I could knock one of those out real quick. So today I made my own, and it's so freaking good it'll make you cry.
I like
That's
it.
how good it is.
I'm in. I topped off my bourbon and caught the tail end of the interview there, Gene. One thing I think she said, what was her name? She became visible. What was her name?
Renee Stillman.
One thing I really like that she said, she's like, look, I'm not interested in smoking weed. I'm not interested in drinking. It's not my thing. And I think there are a lot of people that leave the church or high demand religion, wherever, right? And they're like, oh my gosh, now I'm an alcoholic. And it definitely doesn't need to be the case. Like, you get to explore living outside Mormonism and living outside in your own world exactly how you want to define it. If alcohol's not on the table, alcohol's not on the table. It's not a big deal. You get to define that. No one gets to tell you that you have to try alcohol. No one tells you that you have to try weed. I mean, it may like make it more fun for some people. You know, no one tells us that we have to try Randy's spinach dip, you know, but I'm going to try it anyway.
Mhm.
Randy and I talked about this too the other day, is that there is this concept of infantilization in the church where they treat us like children, and they feel like they have to dictate everything to us. And look how complicated the handbook is. I did not even know this until I interviewed Jenny Gage the other day. There's literally a section in the handbook on twinkle lights on Christmas trees, which are not allowed, by the way, in church buildings. I mean, what kind of BS is that they feel like they have to dictate those tiny things to us? So it's no wonder that when we leave the church, we have a hard time finding a sense of identity. We have a hard time defining values for ourselves. And so I'll just wrap up my portion by showing you my beautiful little wood carving that says, "You did not wake up today.
Yes.
Full
To
screen.
be a weak ass bitch."
You're not
And then on my
love it.
chalkboard,
Beautiful.
there are only 2 rules in my house. So on my chalkboard, after I got over my I am group phase, I just wrote 2 things. 1, remember who the fuck you are. And 2, don't be an asshole. And that's it. Those are the only rules in my house now.
If those are the only 2 rules in your house, I'm coming over.
My only
Come on over. You're welcome.
And I am an asshole.
I definitely have my moments. Chance will tell everybody I have my moments.
Yeah. And so I, during the break, we'll say, since I had already seen and I edited Renee, and I've seen like hours and hours over the last couple of days of Renee now, I went and visited Michelle, and she said, gee, the only thing that I can think of that I sin is that when we're at Asian restaurants, I get the black tea. I don't like it, but I drink it just because I fucking can. Now, she didn't say fucking, and I always have to encourage her to like lose the Mormon brain by saying it's okay to swear. Say this, the Q15 are fucking old men or whatever, right? And so that happened. So if somebody doesn't like that, I'm trying to help her take control of her own, her self-sovereignty. That's what we're trying to do here.
I've lost so much respect for you, Gene, learning that you had some black tea at the Chinese restaurant.
Yes, I would do that as a TBM.
Do they even serve black tea? Like, I want to know what Chinese restaurant is serving black tea.
Right. They're all green around here.
Jasmine or whatever, but it could be like green tea too, right? But
is it green?
They call it jasmine tea.
What
and I think
color is it?
That it's usually it's been black tea, because I guess that there's sometimes I've seen like oolong or other things and other teas.
But if the liquid was black, isn't that coffee?
Well, it was darker.
Hot drink. That's right? The admonition, right?
Yeah, no hot chocolate.
Kendra's got you. It's a hot drink. So
and back
to
it
was hot chocolate.
I always get the sugar, so it's just like soda for me anyway.
So maybe you all know if I'm correct in quoting this. I remember reading Mormon Enigma years ago, and the author said that Emma Smith and the Relief Society women were damn sick and tired of cleaning up after the men when they had their, priesthood meetings, because
when they had the school of the prophets. The school of the prophets.
Yeah, they spit the tobacco juice all over the place, and of course,
chewing tobacco.
So Emma, in a fit of disgust, said to her husband, "I wish you would have a revelation about how disgusting tobacco is." And so, to please her, for whatever reason, he prays on it, and miraculously, this revelation comes, against the use of tobacco. Well, of course, the brethren are upset. And so they say, well, you need to prey on the women with their coffee clutches. And so, of course, he did. And that's where the word of wisdom came from. Now,
I
this
love
was
that.
in that book. I don't know how truth it is or if there's a kernel of truth in there,
It-
but I've
it-
always thought it was a tit for tat kind of a thing. That he basically plucked out of the air in order to keep the faction happy.
it is in the Doctrine and Covenants, or it was in the Doctrine and Covenants Institute manual a long time ago. That story was
Oh,
there.
okay.
I remember hearing that too, but at the same time, it's no coincidence that the temperance movement was gaining a lot of
Yes.
popularity at that time as well, which was exactly the same thing. No coffee, no tea, no alcohol, no tobacco, and no oral sex. Just kidding. That didn't happen until 1981.
No, that's the castle with the the one with the grill-shaped beacon. That's the oral sex castle.
Renee,
Okay,
you mentioned the term tit for tat, which begs the question. I do know what a tit is, but what's a tat? Is that like tattoo or?
No, it's that old. It's that old knitting, the tatting.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, Randy, that's what it
I don't know
is.
how it's.
Randy,
Well-
it's okay. I thought it was man boobs too.
Okay, by the way, while we're on this subject, and I realize that I'm the one that brought it up, but does anybody believe that the first presidency in Quorum of the 12 universally received a revelation that there should be no oral sex? Why was that even a thing that happened? I
that
don't
was
get it
so
at all.
Stupid.
That was because women would go in and complain to some bishop somewhere, and it went up the chain and came back down. I
can't believe that women had that much power that they could get
Right.
rid of oral sex in the church. There's just no way.
Well, none of my women complained.
When those letters came out, my first wife and I were taking a marriage class at BYU, and the instructor he told us exactly why those letters came out. He was part of the committee. His name was Brother Barlow, I think, if I remember right. And he said that women were complaining, and it went up to the first presidency, and that's why the letter was written.
Philip Barlow.
It could have been Philip Barlow.
I just can't even believe. I cannot believe
I know.
in any
I know.
world. I just can't believe it. I really can't.
Right. That
I
women
can't
will
believe
even be
that
listened
women
to.
have been complaining about shit for eons, and that's the thing that they listen to.
Well, I saw a TikTok.
I know.
Wait a second. I saw a TikTok where a woman says, "I knew that the New Testament wasn't true when I realized that a woman went to the men and said, 'I'm with child and I've never had sex.' They believe the woman, and that means that proved to her it can't possibly be true, that the whole thing, because they believed a woman got pregnant without having sex."
Yeah, and you can bet that no man on earth went and complained about having oral sex.
Right?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Well, I think I think it may have been like, and I joke with Chance about this, right? Like it's like they weren't getting any, and so they're like, well, if I can't have any, then no one can have any.
They're like, my wife's too old, so therefore nobody can have any.
Yeah.
Good point, Nick.
I heard though, if you take out the false teeth,
I knew you were going to go there.
Gene.
I knew you were going to go there, Gene.
Gene.
I only heard
I
that.
almost
I don't
didn't
know.
say my comment because I knew you were going to say that. Well,
Actually, I think was it who's the comedian? Jim Carrey in that movie where he has his yes man, his neighbor.
Where he can't lie.
Yeah, where he can't lie. He has to say yes to everything. It's not the liar one. He has to say yes to everything.
Oh, that's a different one. Okay.
And he helps his older female neighbor put up some shelves, and he has to say yes when she says, I can help you out, because he hadn't been having sex lately. And then his friend finds out, and And I think the friend that finds out is from that 70s show. It's either the guy that's in prison now or the guy that was in The Heretic.
Oh yeah, Topher Grace.
Here's a story about this neighbor, and he sees the neighbor at a party, and he says, he says, "Do you want to get out of here?" And she says, "Yes." And he sets his drink down, and they go because he heard what a good job she did. Men.
Is Topher Grace in prison?
No, the other one.
The other
Danny
one's in prison.
Masterson.
Danny Masterson is in prison. Topher Grace was in Heretic. Two different things.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Topher Grace was also in Spider-Man.
He was?
Yeah.
Which heretic?
Yeah.
The recent one.
Yes,
The
the
movie
Heretic that we reviewed.
With the Mormon missionaries.
Oh, okay.
The Mormon
Kendall.
missionaries.
Hello.
Kendall, hi.
Hey, Kendall.
Hi, Kendall.
How's it going?
good to
so
see
we're
your
talking about
face.
sin. Who's had the juiciest sin so far?
So far, Randy's got us all spanked.
Yeah.
Sounds fake.
Kendall is
Literally.
actually a freshly out of the church. He has fresh in his mind what sins as he's doing them and how he processes from now on. And
So I think like the right answer.
Yeah, I have a lot of things still to check off. I'm actually really bad at sinning. I haven't done much of it since leaving. I haven't had a lot of opportunity or desire. But one thing I do, I do a lot of evil speaking of the Lord's anointed. That one's good.
You haven't done any, Kendall, because you're no longer bound by them.
Oh yeah. It's all in how you define it. That's true.
That's right. That's right.
That is my favorite sin, Kendall. I do join you in that one.
So Kendall, what is your as you have started to acclimate to a post-sin lifestyle? What is your most recent favorite way to
be an adult?
Be an adult and go against the objections of the church.
Oh my gosh. My number one is just like getting rid of the thought process of like, is this approved? You know, like, is this okay? Like I heard the part of the show where Megan was saying like the handbook of instruction is so detailed. And like, I struggle with scrupulosity. I didn't know that word when I was in the church, but it really is true that I just, everything that I thought, everything that I contemplated doing, I had to be like, you know, what will church leaders think? You know, can I imagine President Hinckley or President Monson or President Nelson doing this? And I don't have to do that anymore. That has been the most freeing, great thing.
You mean you don't ask yourself, what would Rusty say every time you do something?
I don't anymore. And it's so freeing.
I do and laugh.
Kendall, I just want to give you some solidarity because I didn't realize, and I didn't know what religious scrupulosity was either, but I had scrupulosity so bad that anytime there was a area authority, general authority, anybody like that coming into town, I would clean and scrub my house relentlessly because I was like, what if they decide to come and visit my home and they come and they find out that I don't have a clean home and they can't feel the spirit here? Because missionaries that would come in to teach my husband would always say, oh, we can feel the spirit here. It's so strong. And I always thought, oh no, there's a general authority coming into town. I know they're going to pick me, because they always talk about how they go to some member's house where there's a part member family or something, and they go and rescue the one sheep or whatever. And I was like, oh no, they're coming to my house. I better clean everything. So I just want you to know, I identify with that religious scrupulosity.
Yeah, there's so many teachings. I mean, who else had that talk where it's like, you need to live your life so that like, if the second coming were any moment, you would be ready, you know, like
you
stuff like that really
good.
gets in your head of like, holy cow, like every moment I have to be perfect.
Yeah, I had those same thoughts of like, if the Savior comes right now, I want to be found doing good. And so I was always trying to like, you know, get done with the chores and other stuff so that I could go read my scriptures or listen to a conference talk or teach my kids or have scripture study or something like that. Because, you know, I was like, what if Jesus comes while I'm cleaning dog shit out of the kennel? No.
Yeah,
So
and
I
it's all over the scriptures, like Mosiah, if you do not watch yourselves and your words and your deeds. I mean, thought crime is a huge thing all across the gospel.
Oh,
Yeah.
see,
Most
that's
of
where
my
I'm.
sins were sins of my mind, in my own
If
mind.
you
Uh-oh.
commit adultery in your heart,
Yeah. Like Jimmy
Yeah.
Carter.
Oh, I
Jimmy
have
Yeah,
Carter.
a hard time with
and
the if you
if
look
it's in
on
your
a
heart and it's the sin next to murder, I mean, there's so much pressure on Mormons. Like, I really sincerely feel bad. Like, after I left, I was talking with one of my few friends who I had known had left, and the first thing she said was, "It's a torturous way to live."
Yes.
True.
I always
It
knew
is.
I was going to hell every time they'd say that scripture about the thoughts. Because come on, when you're a kid growing up, really?
Well, anything you try not to think about, that's exactly what you're thinking about.
But
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's so counterintuitive.
I
as
didn't
a
try
man,
not thinking about it though, Kinder. I tried to think about it, and I did.
So one thing I'd
as a
love to
man
thank
thinketh, so is he.
Right?
Right?
thank Stephen for his donation to the show. That triples our
Oh,
revenue for the
thank you,
year.
Stephen.
So
Well,
one thing I was going to say, like if thinking about it or saying to not do something causes you to think about it, I want everybody out there to not donate $4.99 tonight. See how well that works.
no, I don't want them to donate $100
Oh, okay. Yeah, there you
or
go.
$500. Don't donate $500.
We'll see.
don't
I don't need
donate any
$500.
money to Latter
I don't
Daily
need it.
Digest.
Yeah, no money. We don't need your money. Do not donate anything at all.
Mm-hmm.
So anyhow,
So
Yeah, that
I
whole
want to
commandment about not looking on a woman. If you look on a woman and lust after her, then you've already committed adultery in your heart. I was like,
Yes.
well, fuck it.
right?
I'm done.
Right?
Yep.
What man hasn't done that?
What man or
Well, that's
woman?
why I think
Man
the
or
church
woman.
is
Woman.
accurately described
Man or
as a sex cult. Like, all that suppression and all that,
Yes.
fear instilling of like, don't think this. These are dirty thoughts. Get that out of your mind. The effect of that is like in your average congregation, it's heightening the thinking of that. Like, they're thinking about it way more.
That's right.
Right?
just
That's
think
right.
about it. In the year 120 AD, a couple of guys in Greece are copying scriptures, and some guy says, "Hey, I have this idea. Let's throw in that Jesus says, even if you look after a woman and lust after her, you've committed adultery. Let's see if that flies." And then they did it, and it's been fucking everybody up since then.
Oh, yeah.
No one said anything. Like, they were like, he didn't say anything.
we got away with it.
We got away with it.
Richard did the thing. Thanks, Richard.
All right. Yeah. Reverse psychology.
And KD's going to give $500 with his spiritual bank account.
Well, I like that.
That's a perfect one.
I want to see it with my spiritual eyes.
Yeah.
Hey,
Gene,
well,
I
I'm
totally
holding.
thought you were going to say that let's think about a couple of guys in 128D, and you said cop, and I totally thought you were going to say copulating, and you didn't. You said copying, and I was disappointed.
But
Megan,
yeah, that
If
probably
you have-
we're
happened
definitely
too.
in a different place right there.
If you haven't noticed, Gene doesn't use the word copulate. He uses the word fuck.
This show is better than copulating. That's all.
Can I just show you all this right here while I have it in my hand?
No,
This is a bag of wild chips, WYLDE. The E is torn off, but it's because I was eating them. But I'm on the keto
ADE?
lifestyle. These chips are made out of 100% chicken, not chicken skin, chicken, like breast of chicken.
That's our $20,000 sponsorship that we're just announcing. And
They are-
Wow, nice.
now
they
it's
are
up to you
so
to go
amazing.
get that.
Can't wait to start getting my residuals.
Right. For all of you on keto, which is
Can we at
me,
least get a free bag of chips?
I'm
Yeah.
just
Like,
disgusted.
Randy,
I'm
Randy,
waiting
is
for
my Randy, is my bourbon keto? Am I good on my bourbon?
you're good on your
No.
bourbon and your
I mean, it's more
vodka.
keto than Yeah.
I was inspired by the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. I want a $30,000 vibrator contract.
Oh,
I
geez.
will show it. I will get somebody to demonstrate how it works. If we can get that.
Mhm.
Gene, that shows what you know. You don't even have to demonstrate it. You just have to show it
Yeah.
and say that
That's
you
all.
enjoy it. That's all.
Don't tell him
There you
that, Deb. I'm
sorry.
sorry. Don't tell him that, Megan. Listen, I'll give you 30 grand if you can get someone to come on and demonstrate it.
That's right. That would have to be worth at least 5 new subscribers, right?
No, that is
Gene-
called OnlyFans.
Well, let's choose
Right.
a podcast called Only Jeans.
Only
Nice, yeah.
every pair of pants I own are jeans.
That's right.
But yeah, I've been listening to Jasmine's new channel, and she talks about the secret lives of Mormon wives and how just like by mere exposure, people are joining the church, and how good that show is. I think that is interesting that like a certain percentage of people who are exposed to this spiritual path will join. Like that's just math.
I want receipts, honestly. I want to talk to these people who are joining the church because of that show.
Like,
well,
I
the
believe
joining-
it's probably the same number of people who are joining the church because of Ward Radio.
Well,
They're
it's
joining because they think that's the kind of lifestyle they'll have if they join.
They're
That's
hoping to
their
become
exposure
swingers.
to it. It's like, wow,
It's the-
those are hot girls. I think I'll join that church and get
Well,
crazy.
Yeah,
It's the
as
people who are
strange as it
watching-
sounds, that really is often the thought process. It's some random fascination. People are fixated. They investigate it, and again, like 99 people that do this don't end up getting baptized, but 1 out of 100 or whatever the number is do. So, like in a way, I think she's right. But Megan is absolutely right too. That like these are not like your traditional baptisms. They're just like, you know, whatever for some random reason, but they get exposed to the church and the church gets their hooks in them and they join.
Did they
Randy
get
and I-
baptized in a white bikini?
Randy and I are going to learn how to dance, and we're going to start dad talk on TikTok.
You
I
guys
used
would
to
make
be-
so much money, no lie.
I used to be a professional dancer.
There you go.
That doesn't surprise me one bit, Randy.
Fire it back up, Randy.
I
I'm telling you.
I was a group. Speaking of dad, it was a group called Daddy's Jam, and yeah, that's another show. But yes, it was a kick
Wait,
in
what
the
was
head.
it called, Randy?
Daddy's Jam, JAM, and we
Daddy's
all had our
Jam.
own. All had our own daddy's names. I was weightlifting at the time and ripped, and so I was Buff Daddy, but one of my partners had a ponytail, and he was Pony Daddy, and we had all these names. And I have a picture. I'll show you a different time.
There's like a 30% chance that a like poster of Randy is up at some girl's dorm in BYU.
I doubt that.
Buff Daddy.
I doubt that.
Yeah. When are we gonna see some clips? I just
Like-
learned about this.
BYU's
could-
Daddy Issues channel, I think.
I can show you a picture of Daddy's Jam if I can figure out how to get it on here.
Yeah, if you have it on a,
Because I'm not on my computer, I'm on my freaking phone.
you can
So
try
I-
to send it to me, and I can try to show it. Or Megan,
Okay,
you
I'll
have
send it to you right now.
Send it to me and Megan, and we'll see who gets it up first.
Okay, carry on, my wayward son.
Sometimes when I open up a picture, I can open up the Facebook tab. That's what I can do. That's
But
cool.
don't wait for me because then the pressure's on and it's hard for me to find the pic.
Oh, the
So
pressure's
talk
like
amongst
big time
yourselves.
on. Like I've got
That's
like
right.
we've got like BYU girls that are waiting for you to post this.
Oh yeah, that'll be a real thrill for him.
Yeah.
I didn't say we were hot. Although we
right.
did take our coats off and, we had a few sexy moves. Choreographer was Janet Jackson's choreographer. So he did know what he was doing.
Well, what's the guy strippers? What are they called?
Magic Mike.
Chippendales.
Chippendale.
Chippendales, Magic Mike, Thunder Down Under. Yeah,
So
they were all good
It
friends of
was
ours.
sub Chippendales enough to appear at a Disney review, right? You played at Disney.
We did do a performance at Disney, yes, and at Universal Studios, and then we started doing theaters, like show houses. But I'm, but
Like
don't
maybe
I
fish
feel like this
fry
is going to be the
restaurant.
highlight of the podcast. Gene is Randy's pictures.
Randy's dancing past.
We've doubled our live viewers just in anticipation of Randy's dance picture.
now,
And
now the pressure is so on to find my pics.
so you
This
say
is going to be the YouTube short right here.
so in a few years before you were Rip Daddy, you were Puff Daddy, right?
I was 310 pounds at one time, and then I started lifting weights and stuff, and yeah, lost weight and blah blah blah. The problem is I have here we go.
Oh, but
Okay,
Kendall,
so-
for a second, while I'm getting this from Randy, tell us your first sort of adult sin moment, adult time, and what was it? Have you had adult beverages or anything, or what's?
I've not tried alcohol yet. I did try coffee, but it was just like, tasting
Like
it,
dirt, drinking dirt.
Yeah, it really didn't catch on. I have no desire to try again. I mean, I'm not against it, but I'm not going to seek it out.
Yeah, I had to have.
But no, my first thing is kind of what I said before. It's like, it sounds so dumb, but like, to me, asking like, what does Kendall want? And like telling people no, like that was the biggest shift for me. Like I felt so badass doing that, or like rebellious. I don't know the right word, but definitely not church approved to be like, I'm gonna assert myself and not do the most Christ-like thing every second.
So which one are you, Randy?
I'm the one on the left that has big arms.
There you
I
go.
sent you two of them, and then the poster is the next one. That that was our poster.
That's you, Randy?
Yeah, I'm on the far right there.
Whoa, I
Randy, that-
don't even recognize you.
Pretty
Wow.
sweet.
Well, I'm not too sure that I'm glad you said you don't even recognize me. But
Got the goatee and glasses.
No, it's the glasses. If your glasses were off.
definitely, then you'd know it was me.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Wow.
There you go.
So just coffee for Kendall.
Yeah.
What does
Kendall,
what
is there-
does, Exmo Possibilities recommend for alcohol for
Kendall?
Blue Moon or Guinness?
Probably not Blue Moon, and definitely not Guinness yet.
I definitely wouldn't start.
Oh no, Guinness is a good one to start off with.
I'd say a cider. I think ciders.
I
are a
would start
great way
with
to start.
cider. Like I would, if Kendall were hanging out with us tonight, pop out a cider and
Especially something like a peach or
Yeah.
strawberry.
Or
something
I have
sweet.
Mike's Hard Lemonade.
Yeah, Mike's Hard Lemonade's okay.
Mike's Hard Lemonade.
Yeah,
not
that I've actually been exposed to. There's a TED Talk. So I have a ranking of my absolute favorite TED Talks of all time. My number 4 favorite TED Talk is, I think it's Daniel Kahneman talking about decision-making processes. And he tells a story about a dad, a divorced dad that takes the kid and like he buys lemonade thinking it's normal lemonade and it's Mike's Hard Lemonade. And, like he gets in all sorts of legal trouble. But I was like, well, the kid was fine. Like maybe that's okay or whatever. I can't remember exactly how I thought, but that's funny.
And
Yeah.
he grew up and started making lemonade, and his name was Mike.
Mike.
Yep. I got to check someone's Irish heritage before I throw a Guinness at them.
Mhm.
And it depends if they're North Ireland, then it's Guinness. But if it's South Ireland, you can't give them Guinness. It's got to be Murphy's.
Mm.
What about a Moscow Mule? I'm only saying that because that's all. I don't know much about drinking, but I know that name.
Moscow mules are nice, but only in winter.
Okay.
Lots of suggestions in the chat coming in.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
gotta
why
find
not?
some way
When
to
I say
rank them.
nice,
Like which
mimosas,
ones are
yes.
sweet? Like I'm never gonna have alcohol unless it's an actual good experience. I'm
So,
a
like,
sugar fiend.
I think
White Russian.
Debbie Donovan like calls out mimosas. I'm gonna like 100% advocate for that. It is a great thing to do to go to like brunch and enjoy a mimosa with breakfast. It's just a little bit of champagne.
I think you should actually start out at home with a mimosa because then you can add as much juice as you want to the champagne
Yeah.
and get
No
yourself.
matter what you're trying, start at home. That's
Yes.
my advice. And
Start at
Kendall, you
home.
missed it earlier, but I was saying that when I first started drinking, I bought a breathalyzer on Amazon and I stayed at home and I tried different things to see how it affected me in different ways and how long in between drinks and all of that stuff, because you do not want to be experimenting on that stuff when you're out in a crowd, especially if you're not with friends. If you're going to go out somewhere, you need to have a buddy who is a designated driver or a designated drinker, and you're both in an Uber.
Well, that would be a good show, Megan. You want to do it again?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that is absolutely the way I would do it. I would want to know the forensic analysis of its effects on me and like knowing when to partition like the stages. I would totally do that. That actually appeals to me more than anything else that's been said on the topic, because I would learn about myself. That I'm interested in.
Well,
I
so
think
just so you know, there's I don't know if you guys are Benedict Cumberbatch fans, but I used to watch Sherlock Holmes on the BBC channel. I loved that show. And Sherlock Holmes figured out the exact right amount of alcohol to drink on the bachelor party for Watson so that they didn't get too drunk and then he could show up at his wedding the next day and not be hungover. Well, just so that you know, once you start drinking, your decision-making capacity diminishes quite a bit. And your ability to stay on that regimen is going to go right out the window. So that's why I say you need to have a designated drinker, somebody who's like a step or two behind you, who's going to be more sober than you to help you make good decisions.
How about we do this? Next week, we all start with the same brand of red wine, a bottle of red wine. And every time Gene says whatever the password is, we have to drink another glass of wine.
Oh no, this is going to
But
be
the
a
difference
disaster.
is Randy will be doing tequila while everyone does red wine.
White Russians,
Well, no,
thank you very
I have
much.
to admit, full transparency, part of the reason is I still have the church's instilled phobia. Like what if I have one drink and I become this like alcoholic, or like not that extreme even, but just that like I have some, need for it, or like, I'm attracted to it and I start to depend on it in some small way. Like I don't want any need for it.
Well, I
Kendall,
will say this,
just
Kendall.
so you know, sorry, you go ahead.
I will say this, like, it's pretty attractive.
I think as long as you're
No.
not doing it when you're sad, you're not doing it as like a relief from something, things like that. Those are the times you're going to be like pushed to want to become an alcoholic, right? Like, don't do it because it's
a coping mechanism.
Do it like you said.
And that's probably one strong reason I'm not going to do it now. Like this court case and not seeing my son, and I'm estranged from my family.
There's a lot going on.
It's a lot right now in my life, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, that probably wouldn't do your court case a lot of good, getting drunk online.
Judges love drunk parents when they're testifying.
As I drink more bourbon.
And yes, as Richard points out, it is okay not to drink.
Yes.
And also,
Yes.
we should also point out, alcohol is a class 4 carcinogen. None of us should be drinking. Let's just put that out there. But if you're going to drink, you should drink responsibly.
There you go.
Yes.
I will say this. My liver has never verbally complained to me. All right. I know that it's not happy, but it hasn't verbally indicated that it's not happy. Therefore, I'm going to continue.
You know what I say to that? Shut up, liver. You're fine.
I don't know what I like
conditioning
more.
my liver. I think it's becoming stronger. Like I think I'm becoming Captain America. My liver is like Captain America.
Exercise helps everything, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what I like more from Stephen Alma Stansfield, the $4.99 or that Kendall needs something like a slippery nipple. That could be because
Oh,
he's
that's a good
divorced,
choice
as
right
well.
there. A slippery nipple.
That could be a double entendre.
Wait a minute, you can get slippery nipples?
Multiple ways.
Yes.
I need the recipe.
That's
for
really hot. Okay. I really must be frisky tonight.
Somebody find the recipe for slippery nipple, and I want to hear what that is.
Well, I know one of the ingredients is a nipple.
There you go. I can
The other
supply
one
You'd
the
be
butter.
surprised, Randy.
Whose nipple, Randy?
I
Well-
want a Slurpeo nipple.
Isn't that what happened to Janet Jackson during the halftime show?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I've never been able to
It's,
see that.
It's Irish cream and sambuca.
I missed it. I missed it in the chat, but somebody called out, and I apologize. I missed who posted it. Somebody in the chat called out liquid THC. So that's something that Chance and I have been dabbling around in a little bit. Is the drinking form of THC, and it's been
Thumbs
so
up.
real for life. Kim D, thank you.
What do you drink? Tell me what you're doing. Are you drinking the soda or the juice?
So it's a Delta 9 drink. You can get them online.
0 calories.
0 calories. They are
Oh, I know.
incredibly tasty, and
They last about 3 hours. They don't have a lot of the bad side effects that I feel like a gummy a lot of times will give me.
Oh, I've had many a THC drinks. Trust me.
Yeah.
I'm just asking if you're doing juice or soda. You can get them sugar free, by the way.
yeah.
And are you doing the 5 milligrams or the 100 milligrams?
So they come in 5, 10s, and 20s. We're gonna do a TikTok video about them here soon.
And hundreds.
Yeah.
They do the hundreds. I think
Yes.
I might go insane if I tried 100 though.
I think we'll cap off at the 20. We're gonna do a TikTok review of them this next week, and we're pretty excited about it. I think there's been a lot of people asking questions about THC infused drinks and things like that, and you know, how legit are they compared to, like, I don't want to. The biggest thing we get is I don't want to go up to the dispensary and get it and do anything there. I don't know what to do at the dispensary. And we bought these online. They were delivered to us because we live in Arizona and it's legal here. And it was great. Like, we both really enjoyed them, and we're going to do a review on them here soon. So,
Well, it's legal where you are now, too.
yes. Yep.
I mean, where you were. Weren't you guys in Seattle for... Wait.
We were in Seattle, and then we were in Idaho. It is definitely not legal in Idaho.
No, not in
So-
Idaho.
Yeah.
Well, we here in Spokane, you can get 100 milligrams, and it's pretty much the same price as the 5s, 10s, and 20s.
Yeah.
The first time I drank 100 milligram soda, Amanda gave it to me. We were at a Mexican restaurant, or we stopped and got it on the way or something, and I drank the whole thing down, and she practically had to carry me out of that restaurant.
That'll probably do it for you.
I couldn't function, even though I was used to the, vaping the oil. When it's a different form and edible, and you're not used to it, it'll kick you in the butt real quick.
Randy,
oh my
I
God,
think
guys, what does this mean? I'm not even kidding. My mom randomly just sent me an email with all these links to why alcohol is bad. Oh, wait. She sent it 1 hour ago, but my browser just refreshed. Isn't that weird?
She must be. Oh, she sent it an hour ago?
Yeah,
She's
watching
the live
prophetic.
stream.
Yeah.
Is
She's
she a Mormon?
prophetic.
Dr. Andrew Huberman, professor at Stanford, said the best amount of alcohol is 0. The negative health effects begin to mount after just 2 drinks a week. The Surgeon General's report says alcohol causes cancer flat out, and any amount is bad.
I mean, I love Huberman, and I listen to almost all of his advice. That's not some of it.
It's selective listening. I'm not a drinker, so I'm not good at, I don't know.
I will say
Yeah.
this about drinking.
How many White Russians did you have again, Randy?
Okay, then yes. In the beginning, I was an instant drinker, 11 White Russians. and put me on my ass. But my Amanda is 18 years sober now. So,
Oh, nice.
yeah.
Good for her.
So
Good.
if I were here at my home, I wouldn't drink unless we did our Tuesdays with Tim and we were each taking shots. That's what we could do. Each take a shot every time every time somebody says a certain word.
That's
you
a
have to have
dangerous game.
it is
That
a
is
Any
a
dangerous
word.
game.
very dangerous game.
But I think it
Any
would
word.
be a fun scientific experiment to have each one of us have a breathalyzer and see after like we all have the same amount, we all have the same, and see like where each one of us is.
That is a good idea. And the other thing I will say too is that if you're typically like a beer drinker and you have a different type of alcohol, it is going to hit you different. My partner and I are avid bourbon drinkers. We love bourbon, all different types. He's a collector. I'm more of I'll collect 2 or 3 different things that I like and sip on each of them. But one night where were we? We were at oddly enough, we were at a school function. Our high school jazz band was performing at a local club, and we went to go see the concert. And he started out with a gin martini, which is not his usual thing. And within 45 minutes, I was the one who had to drive home because he normally is a bourbon drinker. He has a high tolerance. He's a big person. Normally can drink, 2 or 3 bourbons and really not feel that much. But for some reason, he was had 1 glass of gin and it totally knocked him out. So you have to be careful. Like when you're used to drinking a certain thing, if it's molecularly different alcohol, you're going to feel it different.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tim. It was 13 White Russians. I drank 2 and quit, and then drank 11 more.
I thought
Or
that's what it
10
was.
more.
13.
No, 11 more. It was 13
Yeah.
altogether. Okay, sorry.
I'm gonna call out Richard in the chat. He said it is okay not to drink. And
That's right.
100% the case. You get to choose. You get to choose what you're drinking. If it's going to be tea, coffee, alcohol, THC, you get to pick what that is, and you're okay with it. That's your thing now. Like if you're saying none of it, I don't even want to graduate to coffee, tea, or any of that. That's your choice, and that's okay.
That's right.
Like you get to choose. You get to choose where those boundaries are at.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Also, I was going to tell you guys at the dispensary, if you do decide that you want to go to a dispensary, they do have the liquid, both CBD and THC, Delta 9, Delta 8, and THC. And if you just go in and you say, look, it's my first time trying this stuff, normally those guys are so super chill and they're so super cool about, trying to find out what works for you and what doesn't. And they're going to steer you straight. Just start with a low dosage and don't make the mistake of saying like, oh, I ate half a gummy and I'm not feeling anything, so I'm going to eat the other half. Just don't do that.
Uh-oh.
Rookie mistake.
That's the first big mistake to make is I didn't feel anything, so I'm immediately going to take the rest.
Right.
Yes, that's bad news. I had a neighbor that cooks some cookies. Gave me some cookies one night. Started eating the cookies. I couldn't get out of bed for a whole day.
How many cookies did you have, Tim?
3 or 4, I think. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Maybe more than that. But he didn't tell me what was in them.
Incredible.
And my poor cats were outside meowing all night long at the door. I couldn't move out of the bed to do anything all day long, man.
You can make cookies with half can of butter and half regular butter. Or I used to make oatmeal cookies with all can of butter. And one cookie would put you in orbit. Because, they make butter out of they saturate the cannabis into the butter.
Yep.
We're doing a lot of sinning tonight, I would say.
I know.
Depends on your point of view.
Our threshold of perpetrated sins is getting a little high. So
yes.
One thing we also wanted to mention, I think we talked a little bit about before the show, is that Brigham Young had a distillery, I think, in St. George area, and there are other things
Well, hold
that
on,
maybe people can talk about.
Gene. Brigham Young had multiple distilleries, not just in St. George area, several in Salt Lake area. I've been to multiple. I've had his transgenders, sons, daughters, gin, and it is just okay, but still gin, and it's fun to try. But I mean, Brigham Young owned many of the distilleries in downtown Salt Lake during the Brigham Young era, during all of that.
There you go.
In fact, I think that's our next Salt Lake trip. We're going to go up there and do a tour of all the distilleries rather than Temple Square.
There should be a history of Utah distilleries and talk all the dirty deeds behind it.
Forget the Lion House. We're going straight to the distilleries.
Yeah.
Wasn't there a beer brewery that got sued by the church because they were using a name that was affiliated with the church?
Oh, I didn't
Like
hear that.
LDS.
Yes, the Wasatch Brewery brews Polygamy Porter, which is
That's right.
decently popular beer in the area. Why only have just one is their kind of playful motto. They've kind of branched out, and they have a lot more flavors. That's kind of the beer that got them really extremely popular, and it's a pretty good beer. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it's a good porter.
But the church is suing him for it?
But the church did kind of go after them a while back, and they backed off. They've kind of just letting Wasatch Brewery do their thing, but they've got a few others that are really, really good. Polygamy Porter is just like one of their very many offerings. They've got some good West Coast IPAs infused with pine and a few other cool things that kind of remind you of the Wasatch Front that are really fun to drink. But yeah, they're a great one to try.
Well, they sure make them look good on these, like I don't even know. But when they pour it over ice and you kind of see it splash a little bit, and
Wait, Randy, who's pouring beer over ice?
well, no, not beer. Like
Okay.
like they have these drinks that are, I guess it's the names that appeal to me, like oatmeal cookie something and red raspberry bourbon and cherry. I don't know, just all these delicious sounding drinks. I can't stand the taste of wine, but some of those liquors or liqueurs sound so amazing to me.
You have not had good wine then, Randy.
I probably haven't. Here's the deal.
Well, hold
My
on.
my heart doctor counseled me to have a glass of red wine every night before I went to bed. And I bought a bottle of wine. This was years ago. I bought a bottle of wine, and I would try having a glass of red wine, and I couldn't stand the taste. So I put red Kool-Aid in it, thinking that'll sweeten it up a little bit.
Oh, no.
And yeah, and guess what? It only made it more sickening. So I've never been able to drink wine. It just tastes horrible to me.
So, Randy, you live 2 hours away from the most amazing wine country in probably all of Washington and probably parts of the United States. The Columbia Basin has some amazing wineries, and I think we need to make a trip up to see it and take you down to Tri-Cities Basin, because there's some good wines down there.
You want to get me intoxicated so you can take advantage of me.
Very likely, yes. I know
You
that,
know,
like, I didn't say that, but
We figured out our nefarious plans.
Hey, you come see us anytime, because we always have a home for any of you. Bless you, Kendall. We have a home for any of you here in Spokane anytime you want to come visit.
Okay, I'll put it on my list. I finally finalized my road trip with my son this summer. Well, if I get him, I'm supposed to get him in 2 days. I still don't know. But we're going to the Tetons and Lewis and Clark Caves and Glacier.
Oh, fun.
Remember, you got to go through Afton to drive through the the Elkhorn Arch in Afton, Wyoming. Got the world's largest Elkhorn Arch. You got to drive up the 89 through the Elkhorn Arch by my great-great-grandfather's house.
Do you know what the grape said when the elephant sat on him? Nothing. He just let out a little whine.
All
That's
right.
my
Oh, Tim says thumbs down, Randy.
that's my Gene Judson dad joke. I just wanted to add
Gene,
to
you're
your
on, Gene, I
repertoire.
think you're on mute.
Okay.
I don't really tell
All right.
jokes. I just make instant puns, things that come to my mind. My mind doesn't remember jokes, or my mouth doesn't say the jokes in the right order for them to be funny all the time. So I have to rely on spontaneity.
Well, apparently my let out a little whine joke was not that funny either. So you
Oh,
didn't do the
it's
same
funny,
thing.
but it's
It's not. Yeah, it's just
Go
we
ahead,
laughed,
Tim.
we roared in our minds. In our minds, we were just rolling on the ground in laughter, but it just didn't
that's right.
couldn't
That's right.
express.
Gasping for air.
Yeah,
Gasping for air.
Tim wanted to say, "Oh, it was funny. It was just stupid." It's okay.
It was just funny.
It
I
was
just
okay.
lost a million brain cells listening to it. That's all.
Okay. All right. We should also say don't drink and drive.
There you go. Don't
Yes.
drink and drive.
Be
I
responsible.
never drink and drive, or I try not to anyway. Maybe one beer, but
Drinking and podcasting is okay, though, right, guys?
that's right. That's
I
right.
hope so.
And Uber
We don't
costs
do
a
that
lot
one.
less than regret does.
Yes.
Yep, that's true.
Oh,
Has anyone
that's a
seen the
good one.
movie Bella? Wait, no. Is it called Bella? Yeah, I think it's called Bella. Where like this famous athlete who lives in South America drives drunk and kills a little kid, and the whole movie is about the guilt that he deals with.
Mm.
No.
See, if
Oh,
that's the movie
worst
that comes to mind,
Movie. It's good, but
Awful.
it's so
I'm never
bad.
going to drink.
I will say this, like
Go ahead.
I will say if you're going to try something new, plan ahead. Plan ahead. Make sure you have a
Exactly.
driver. Make sure you have somebody that's going to wingman for you. Make sure you have a plan. If things don't go the way they should be, that you have somebody there that can help you get you out of that situation, home and in bed. Or a lot of people are saying, you know, try it at home first, and I think that's a great idea. But have a plan.
Okay.
Wise advice. Very sage
Good advice.
advice.
Yep.
That goes for weed as well.
Oh,
Yeah.
It goes for
100%.
anything you're trying for the first time.
You know,
Exactly.
lying to your parents for the first time over the phone, whether you went to church on Sunday, have a plan. Have somebody there to help you.
Do you have
Yeah.
your exit buddy?
Yeah.
Wow, this was a 2.5 hour episode.
Yeah. This is, and we can still play the TikTok from Renee.
Oh, play it. Play it. Play it.
We can go take a bathroom break. It's like 10 minutes long, and it'll be
Play it.
in the thing, and it'll be kind of fun. I'll try
Play
to
it.
play some of the chats while they're going. And I thought, you know, was a TikTok that it was going to be like 3 minutes, but I didn't know you can do like 10-minute TikToks at the time. But she has
Play it.
over 190,000 views on it.
Wow.
And we're going to watch it, and she's going to get 0 views for it just because I record it. I mean, I've already watched
Play it.
when I play it. All
Play
right,
it, Gene.
here we go.
Come on, spinach dip.
Oh, I have to, I'm going to play it. I have to do things in the right order. I have to bring it to the screen, and then I have to play it.
Video.
Show your TikTok, and we'll see and we'll talk about it. And everybody mute.
Okay. As Joan Rivers used to say, we need to talk. Okay. This, as many of you may know, is Jen Affleck. Not the other one, but this one on The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. I haven't watched all of the episodes because it's very much the reason why I stopped watching The Housewives of New York. I watched it in the very beginning for like the first 11 years, and then it turned into a screaming match, and it turned into such a cat fight that there was nothing going on. It was just so disturbing to watch. So I've only gotten through what, I don't know, 2 or 3 episodes. But the last episode I saw was Jen crying because she's found out that she's pregnant. She doesn't know if she wants to stay married. But that wasn't the most disturbing part. The most disturbing part was her crying because her life is in such turmoil. And the only thing she can think of is, it's because I have left God and God has left me and I don't feel his presence anymore. So she's under the impression that the reason why her life is so effed up is because she has stopped praying and reading her scriptures. Okay, let's talk about this. First of all, I like this filter way better. This is so much better. Speaking of Secret Wives of Mormon Lives, I love the filters that just pop up on TikTok, regardless. Anyway, what I see in this 24-year-old, I think she said she was 24. She may be 26. She's pregnant with her 3rd child. These girls are so delusional about what progressivism is and how they're living a life so much better than their mothers were, or so much better than the other Mormon people who follow the rules to a T. They're living a progressive version of Mormonism, which is making them so much brighter and so much more enlightened. And what I see are, I don't know how many there are, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 or 8 women who are going downhill really fast. And take this from someone who's lived the life that they were living before they got into mom talk, okay? I was young. My children are all between 2 years and 18 months apart. I have 6 children. I had my 6th child by the time I was 32, okay? My version of being a little bit progressive was wearing leopard stockings, okay? That's as far as it went for me. I never thought of breaking any of the real commandments, right? However, I had enough self-worth and I had enough critical thinking skills to know that if I was on vacation with my husband and I wanted to wear a sundress without my garments, that the ceiling was not going to fall. The sky was not going to fall out of my life, and God was not going to, push me away, and I was not going to hell. I knew that, okay? I knew the purpose of a lot of the ritualistic covenants that Mormon people make. I knew their purpose. I also knew where there was letter of the law and spirit of the law and control. And so I definitely could see past that without any guilt whatsoever. And I could lie to my bishop when I went in for a temple recommend. Let me tell you what it was. So when you go in for a temple recommend, one of the questions that they used to ask, I don't know what they ask now, but one of the questions that they used to ask is, do you wear your garments day and night? And I would say yes. And my husband asked me one time, what do you say to the bishop when he says that? And I say yes, because I knew that not wearing my garments at night underneath my pajamas was not a sin, that I had absolutely no chances of sinning while I was fast asleep in bed with my husband. I also knew that I had teenage boys in the house. And I knew that I had a disabled child that woke up about every 2 hours. And I would have to get up and turn him over or adjust him somehow. And I was not going to do that in my garments. So I chose to not wear the garments, but I chose to wear a modest pajama so that I could get up in the middle of the night, take care of my children without exposing myself to my teenage boys. I felt really good about that decision. I didn't need anyone to tell me that was right or wrong. I didn't need to go and confess this to a bishop. So that's what I'm saying when I talk about critical thinking skills. But what I see in these young women, and the problem is I also see this in people who are leaving the church. There is this mentality that once you have left the rules and the authorities that are over you, that now your life is up to you and you can do whatever you want to, without looking at the world in general, even this secular world. They're not looking at where alcohol takes families. They're not looking at what sex addiction is doing to families. They're not looking at marriages that are being broken up by cheating sexually with on your husband or your wife. They're not looking at that. They're just thinking, damn it, nobody's going to tell me what to do. I didn't get to live my teenage lives. And so now I'm going to have sex in a hot tub with whoever I see on the street. And I'm going to drink myself into oblivion because nobody can tell me that I can't. And that is such an immature mentality, because there are so many people in the world who are not Mormon, who are not even Christian nationalists. They might even be just a completely secular person who knows that alcohol is dangerous and that alcohol breaks up a lot of marriages. It destroys a lot of families. It has nothing to do with a doctrine that was, secretly given by this one man in Missouri. They also know that cheating on your husband or wife also breaks up a lot of marriages, destroys children's lives. So why is this something that you go to first? Why is this the first thing you do once you leave a fundamental religion and you think you no longer have rules? Because biology has rules. Gravity and nature has rules. If you get too close to the edge of the cliff and you fall off, there's a really good chance that you will die. Even if you say all the way down as you're falling, I'm not dying, I can fall off a cliff, even if nobody can tell me I can't fall off a cliff. Okay, there are rules to living on this earth as a human being. So I'm seeing these girls, the only thing that they're doing to better their lives, they think, is going on TikTok, having sex parties in the hot tub, and drinking themselves into oblivion. I don't hear one of these girls say to their husbands, look, I'm making a lot of money on TikTok now. I am the sole provider. I'm going back to college. I'm going to get my master's degree, and I'm going to pursue something that I've always wanted to do as a human. I no longer am going to believe that my sole purpose is procreation. I'm going to find out who I am, and I'm going to pursue that. They're not bettering themselves in any way. And that's the most disturbing part of this whole Secret Lives of Mormon Wives thing. They're not bettering themselves by doing what they're doing. And if this is some kind of an example for progressive Mormonism, that is very, very sad. So that is my crone wisdom. Someone who has lived through 50 years of marriage. I've raised 6 kids. I've had a child that dies. I've had a son-in-law that dies. I have children with disability, grandchildren with disabilities. My children are fabulous people, and I could not have asked for a better job when I did it. But I would have done things differently if I would have not been so strategically indoctrinated to believe that I only had one purpose in life. So I really wish the best for these girls, but I hope they can get help and that they can start looking at their lives in a different fashion and not just in how many partners can I have sexually and how drunk can I get in a hot tub.
There you go. Now let's see if I can bring us all back. I'm going to remove that. Where are we? Okay, we are mostly here. So let's see. I think I have to bring Tim back in. There's Tim again. So anyway, she is awesome. Who said that? MB. Oh, I love her. So here's Renee's channel. She became visible. Tim, maybe you can mute until you want to talk because there's some background noise, I think. And so she became visible, and I'll also include that in the show description. But also yesterday, and I'll start my camera. Yesterday, Randy and I interviewed her, and we did ended up doing over an hour-long show, and it's really pretty good. It has above average views. People do like her TikTok, and I recommend everybody watch the show. But I will have her channel in our description for this show. So, anybody have any comments about what she said?
So what was her point about going off the cliff? I get that, like, when people leave religion, they kind of go to the opposite extreme. But did she give a solution to that?
No, just have fun. Going off
I
the
think,
cliff.
I mean, what I got out of it, and I love Renee. I've been on her podcast before. She's a friend. What I got out of it is that, you know, a lot of times when people leave religion, they try to just do all the things and experiment on all the things they've been restricted from in the past. And I think her point was more to find purpose and meaning in your life rather than just trying to do all the things that were taboo before. And that's something that I actually believe in a lot. And one of the things that I work on more often with my coaching clients than anything else is developing a strong sense of self, because the church has us outsource our sense of self to the church, and we are indoctrinated to seek for external validation rather than internal validation. And so the thing I work on with my clients who are leaving religion more than anything else is just developing that strong sense of self and really understanding what your values are. And I think, you know, Jean and I and Randy and I have had this discussion before. When I left the church, my values didn't change. I still valued honesty, integrity, you know, personal integrity. I value treating people with kindness and respect. Those things did not change about me at all. In fact, my capacity to do those things increased when I left the church because I wasn't restricted to loving only people who fit within a certain rubric. So I think Renee's point was more, you know, when you're looking for external validation and all you want to do is just experiment and try all these things that you've been restricted from, that's not a way to find purpose and meaning in your life. And she was talking more about self-improvement and self-actualization as a drug of choice rather than going out and just, you know, being promiscuous and trying all the substances.
Yeah, it reminds me of the quote from 1984 when you're saying, you know, you don't discover yourself, you substitute yourself for what the church says you are and the meaning. It says, you will be hollow, we shall squeeze you empty and fill you with ourselves. That's what the authoritarian government in 1984's purpose was.
And Kendall, look at Debbie's comment. She talks about the Mormon church has a fake plan for you to grow up, right?
Now,
you do these things, you go to BYU, you go on a mission, you get married, and you don't have a chance to really grow up and learn responsibility and stuff the way things are, so that when people do leave the church or leave the principles, we'll say, they kind of go off because they haven't been able to learn self-governance.
And Gene, that's the difference between growing up in Utah and growing up in West Los Angeles in the 60s, where you had sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and I was exposed to everything. I wasn't living in the Mormon bubble that the kids in Utah, those of you who grew up in Utah, grew up in. See, I was being tugged every which way I could have been tugged by my friends and everything all around me. I mean, I had anti-war protests I used to go up to UCLA. I had friends that were getting high. I tried pot back then. You know, wasn't too impressed with it, really.
But at the same time, I was the teachers' quorum president where we had 24 names on the roll and 12 kids were inactive.
Right, exactly.
And we, for like 10 years, nobody got their Eagle Scout, and only a very small percentage went on missions. So you survived that, right?
I survived that. That's right.
It wasn't like a path. And speaking of paths, the covenant path, remember, Kendall, can't happen without a covenant.
You just had to say it. You had to say that again.
Yes, that's a drinking moment if people are.
That's right.
So what does everyone build their life on, like their foundation of meaning? Like I sincerely kind of miss the fact that in a twisted way the church gave me this, like, oh, I'm gonna become a god, and I'm like, you know, in the true church, and I have all this truth that, you know, like it gave you a sense of pride and purpose, and meaning, what's better than that, like for everyone
Instead of
specifically.
becoming a God, Kendall, we just are God now.
Well, I will say, like,
That's
I
right.
think
We're in charge of ourselves.
I'm gonna like kind of tout what Megan was saying. Like, you get to personally decide what you think is important to you, and you get to, like, whether that be God, whether that be a church, whether that be a different religion, whether that be, whatever, you get to yourself and whoever's important around you. Like for Shansa, like Shansa is important to me, and together we try and decide what's important to us.
But I think that it also has to be done with love and respect for others, because what might be good for me is not maybe good for my neighbor, right? Like, I think ultimately, kind of like our sign, love is, I think, the ultimate rule, right?
Absolutely.
Loving each
Yes,
other and
indeed.
for
I would
others as
love
well
to
as for
play on
ourselves.
something that Megan said too. Megan just commented that her values haven't changed. And I think that that's why people value you so much, is because your values aren't in any way fake or put on. People respect you and love you because you are who you are, no matter what the situation. I got to say that.
Thank you, Randy.
Hmm.
I will say, Kendall, to sort of put a point on your question, it's not an easy thing. That's one of the reasons I think a lot of people stay in the church, is because it's so much easier to have someone hand you on a silver platter what your morality is and what your values are and what your identity is
And what your life
and
plan is.
what your life plan is and what's the next step and what do I do about this? Well, just look it up in the handbook. It's so detailed. It'll detail your twinkle lights for you, for Christ's sake.
And that's why I was shocked one day when my neighbor said, "Well, I'll let the leaders decide." And I said, "Don't you live your own life and make your own decisions?" "Well, I'll let them decide for me."
That's
I
right. No
thought,
wonder you got
Yeah.
excommunicated, Tim. You were never a true Mormon if you did your own.
that's right. That's right. I thought for myself always.
Yeah.
And,
It's a lot harder.
I followed what I wanted to follow, and I investigated what I wanted to investigate. But the rest, I knew that there were some things that were wrong with the church. They were wrong about evolution. They were wrong about a lot of things, and I knew they were wrong because of things I learned in school.
Yeah. And it's
You
not
know,
just the church, by the way. I mean, we're handed an identity by society. We're kind of told what is acceptable for us to do and to be and to say. And it's really hard for you to strip away all the titles from your life and say, who am I? If I'm not, and I'll just speak for myself, if I'm not a mother, if I'm not a wife, if I'm not a provider, if I'm not a teacher, if I take all those titles away from myself, what am I? Who am I?
No.
It is a really
No.
difficult thing to do, to strip away all those titles that the church gives us and that society gives us, and to come up with an identity, a sense of self that is uniquely ours, that we define for ourselves. We don't let anybody else define that for us, because at the end of the day, we came into this world alone and we will leave this world alone. And so therefore, we are the only one that we have to answer to. And
Well,
I always say this to my clients, in that space between awake and asleep, when you're at night and you're in your bed, whether you share a bed or whether you're alone, that space between awake and asleep is the time when you have your reckoning and you get to decide who you are, and you have that realization of who you really are, what you've really done, what you've really said. You have all those moments come back to you, all your shame, all your regret. What do you do with that in that moment? Who are you? What do you decide to be? Who do you choose to be? And how do you choose to resolve those things? Because at the end of the day, that's all that matters. You are your most important relationship. You are the only relationship that really matters, because at the end of the day, you are alone with yourself. And if you can't be comfortable with that, you need to find a way to try.
And if you don't like
we talked
yourself,
about this on our show together. The closest I've come is knowledge and learning. Like that just sets a fire in me, and I feel so much meaning. It's so great, really, truly. But the problem is the church. It was like every day, constantly, all the time. And now it's like, okay, this works most of the time, but like some days it's not enough to get me out of bed in the morning, you know? Like I don't feel it every day constantly because it's not externally imposed. It is internally um, pushed, and that's not as reliable as something that I think is, you know, external to me, obligating me. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are you being true to yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but myself is not as like strong.
When you're able to be alone with yourself, by yourself in silence, you've made it.
Kendall, it takes a while to deconstruct.
Takes a long time, Kendall.
You're
Tim is
a
a Buddhist
puppy in the
monk.
deconstruction phase, but you know, I have never felt so liberated and so happy and so close to God than I do now. I don't need any organization or corporation to tell me how to worship my God. And the happiness that I feel is astounding.
And there's plenty of people out there that want to tell us how to do that. They want to tell us how to worship, what to worship, and who we should worship.
So Randy, I want to push on that a little bit. What makes you different than all the people who are in religion and like I think they stay out of fear because when you do have to decide all those things for yourself in this chaotic world, like that is hard. It is easier to be told what you want and what to believe.
Kendall, I love to pay my tithing now. I love to see and recognize those who are in need, who have kiddos that need food, or who can't pay their rent. Sometimes it's me. I mean, I have issues financial all the time, but when I have the opportunity to help someone, I'm going to pay my tithing by helping my fellow man, because that's what I know about Christ, is that he taught love. It's all about love, loving your fellow man, loving, you know, not investing in a corporation and not leaving it up to them to decide which investment they want to put my money in. And if I screw up and I feel like I have gone against my true nature, I don't have to go to a man to repent. I don't have to sit in a bishop's office and let him decide if I'm worthy to continue on living the way I've been living. All I have to do is apologize if I've offended someone and tell myself it's not going to happen again, and continue to put that love forth that makes me feel so good.
I do have to say I love that like my internal dialogue and motivations counts now. I would always fear that like, well, I did this thing, like how bad of a sin is that? Like I don't think I meant wrong, but like is that good enough for God? And now I just have to be like, what were my intentions? This was my intention, and so this is how I feel about that. Like that is so relieving to me. Like I can't even tell you.
Right?
Just the other day on Reddit, I saw a post about this guy talked about he was in sacrament meeting and they want them to double their fast offerings. And I thought, they are trying to squeeze more money out of members, and it doesn't matter what you give for the fast offering, because on the bottom of the slip it says the church is going to do with those funds what they will. So even if they're telling members to give more for their fast offerings, it's still going to the same place, and they're going to use it any way they want to. So rather than raise tithing, they want you to raise your fast offerings. They just want to squeeze more and more money out of these poor people, more and more time to do their shit for them that they are unwilling or won't do because they're hoarding all that fucking money.
Amen.
And I'll say also that it's genetically positive for the last tens of thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years, to do good in your tribe, to be nice to each other, to follow the leaders, to contribute to your society. All those things have happened, and the Christians built based on the Jewish tradition, the Jewish traditions based on Mesopotamian traditions based on other prior traditions, and those are life's lessons. And there are always good things that come down, like old wives' tales or other things,
Yep.
And so love is something that's universal that everybody understands. And so if you put it in the scriptures, everybody thinks the scriptures are true, right? Because loving everybody is true, and so anyhow, that's part of why, but if we attach the love to some higher authority, then it seems more important, right? If some mystical, magical person says it, compared to just thinking it for yourself. Like I say, I always want to get a room full of Mormons who've watched the Truman Show and ask them how many people want Truman to stay in the place, and how many people want him to be free. And you could almost tell, how many Pharisees would vote for him to stay, and how many good Christian types would want him to be free and to experience his own authentic self. So
that and Pleasantville.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Different way to sell the story, though. But yeah. Okay. All right.
I didn't want my little buddy here to have an accident, so we're going potty right at the moment. Not we.
Okay.
Another first for Tuesdays with Tim.
No.
Last week was the hospital visit. Today's the front lawn potty.
And it won't be the
Kendall,
last.
when you say I'm not over his being off YouTube, are you talking about Coach?
Yeah, I tried to post a link to one of his videos that I saved, but I guess YouTube won't let me do links on the chat.
No, you can't
Well,
do
no,
links in
I
the
mean,
chat.
I think they're all gone. I think his
They're all
videos are
gone.
gone.
Everything's gone.
No, they were so good. I mean, he was an integral part of my
Yes, but you cannot.
transition out.
Coach
I saved a
took.
few of his videos. They're on my hard drive, on my Dropbox.
Oh, okay.
I tried to post a Dropbox link.
Oh, okay. I
He
don't know.
made one about you have to pay tithing.
Send it to me in the panel.
Yeah, send it in the panel, and then they can.
And then I can put it. I have control. So does Megan. Yeah, it doesn't allow. I don't know if there's a thing that we can do. Just to let everyone know, Shansa and Nick said that their computer totally shut down on them. Sorry.
no.
Thanks for having us tonight. We had a great time. So thanks to them.
It's time we end it.
Yeah, and we'll try to get Kendall's link in the show.
Put it in the show notes.
I could put it. I'll put it in the description of the show. Let's do that, Kendall.
I think it did just work, but it commented as if I were Latter Daily Digest.
Oh,
yeah. You can do it because you're part of the team, right? In Latter Daily Digest.
Yeah.
Okay, so it did work.
Cool. All right. Let's say good night.
All right.
Everybody.
Good night. Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Happy
See ya.
the rest of 2025, and
Take care.
subscribe, and do all the things. And we'll throw up Debbie's thing and Garrick's last comments, and then I'll click the end button. I always forget to click the last.